Hello, Shen. Welcome. And hello, Annabelle. Do speak up if you hear us offering anything that's very strange. um, okay, so we have a few other people because last week I didn't know how to use the Mailchimp mail out thingy, but now I know, and so um, I did invite quite a few people to come participate. Okay, I'll make a note of that later. Thank you, Nick. I actually looked for that because isn't that also called the Book of Tea or something?
No, that's a different book.
Mm.
That's I think that's McGregor Mathers and a bunch of the guys from the Golden Dawn. So
Okay,
that one's a great book as well.
yeah, but I couldn't find that book, and so I
Yeah,
said,
it's out of print. There are PDFs of it online, but I don't know
oh, I
if you can
see.
get a physical copy.
Well, and the one you
Yeah,
have there too with that purple cover, I mean, that's, if you find one, you're going to end up paying an art book price of out of print art book, the OP of like probably $500. It's pretty sought after.
The book T or the
No,
book?
the one you have there.
Oh, I got this one for like $20. I think you can get it from the builders of the Addendum website.
yeah, that may be.
It's on Boda. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk tonight about the 8th card or the 11th card in the major arcana. Uh, most sources that I find seem to agree that it's card number 8, but a couple say it's number 11. And since we have a tarot card producer with us tonight, I'm going to ask him to justify his decision to make it number 11. But in any case, what we are going to talk about is strength. And that was the card that was on the screen at the beginning of this session. And what we are doing is we are talking about archetypes which are invisible. Some say that these invisible forces are from the divine realms, quote unquote, divine realm. But in any case, they are forces that are in the divine. And the idea that it's a force is not particularly new. I'm just going to start with one quick look at the very first tarot deck that we know of, and that's the Marseille deck. And this is strength in the Marseille deck. And as you see, it says La Force. And so this is from, I think, 1483 or something like that. And they're using the term force. So the force didn't come from, did not come from Star Wars. It came from 500 years earlier. And so as great as the Star Wars movies are, they didn't particularly invent anything there. and and so the point is that if we understand these archetypal forces, then we can understand what's going on in our lives a little better. And that's why some have called the tarot a roadmap for life, because they really, the tarot really helps us to understand where we are in our life and what maybe we need to be wary of. That particularly comes up in the minor arcana, but the major arcana are pretty important because they're the main things that happen in our lives, and we can do very little about them other than recognize that they're happening and maybe get out of the way or duck if something is going really bad. And so, so anyway, tonight is the the force. And I'm going to start with some rather gentle ways of referring to this. And so there's a short passage from A New Model of the Universe by P.D. Ouspensky. There's a very short passage here on strength, but it's a bit lyrical, so I'm going to read it just for grins. So here's what he said, and he's saying this is card 11 when he's referring to it. He says, in the midst of a green plain bordered by gently rolling blue hills, I saw a woman with a lion. I guess what I'll do is I'll put the Rider-Waite deck up for the moment as I'm reading this. All right, so this is strength. In the midst of a green plain bordered by gently rolling blue hills, I saw a woman with a lion, garlanded with roses, the sign of eternity over her head. The woman calmly and confidently closed the lion's mouth, and the lion gently licked her hand. This is a picture of strength, said the voice. Understand all its meanings. First of all, it shows the strength of love. There is nothing stronger than love. Only love can conquer evil. Hatred always breeds hatred. Evil always bears evil. You see those garlands of roses? They speak of the magic chain. Union of desires, union of efforts, create such strength that all wild unconscious strength bows before it. And the further it is, the strength of it, and the further it is, the strength, and further it is the strength of eternity. Here you pass into the realm of mysteries. For a consciousness that is aware of the sign of eternity above it, there are no obstacles, nor can there be any resistance from the infinite. Okay, so that's what he had to say about this. And I rather like the idea that it's the number 8. Oh, Colleen's joining us. Terrific. Let me bring Colleen in here for a minute. Hi, Colleen. Great to have you here with us tonight. I've just read the rather lyrical passage by Ouspensky from A New Model of the Universe. That was the starting point. And so now what I'm going to do, as I have in each week, is I'm going to start with Stephen Heller's version of strength, partially because it's simple and sweet, and partially because it contains the Kabbalah, and it shows the path that we're talking about in the Kabbalah. We're not trying to link up the Kabbalah as yet. That will be done next spring, I hope, although Nick in the 26th of October is going to give us a talk about the Kabbalah. But I'm just trying to set in your mind the idea of the Hermetic Kabbalah and the path that is referred to for the card strength. And then we'll come back to this at a later time. And once again, you see the Rider-Waite deck here. Now, isn't that good? I managed to lose my place. Okay, here goes. It's short. A female figure garlanded with flowers and surmounted by the sign of infinity holds in her hands the muzzle of a lion, whose mouth she is in the process of either closing or opening. The woman is robed in the white of purity and pure spiritual force, while the lion is red, indicating passion and emotional energy. The power exercised by the woman over the beast is evidently of spiritual character rather than brute strength, and her dominion over it appears to be a gentle one. Eternity bestows on her a strength that is not of this world. And then the path, Teth, from Gebora to Chesed. So I think number 5 is Gebora, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. And number 4 is Chesed.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so the keynote, the balancing or connecting of mercy and severity. So this is the pillar of mercy, and this is the pillar of severity. And this is the pillar of mercy is on the masculine side, believe it or not, and the pillar of severity is on the feminine side. So the keynote, the balancing or connecting of mercy and severity is accomplished when the beast within is tamed and its power turned to the service of the purposes of the spirit. Motto, O lion and O serpent that destroy the destroyer, be mighty among us. From a Gnostic mass, that is where that came from. And then Stephen Heller's meditation, keeping in mind that he styles himself as a bishop of the Gnostic Church, I believe. As I join justice with love in my life, I know that I require fortitude to proceed on my journey. In order to face the severity of the spirit, I must gird my loins with strength ineffable and great. Gently I will tame the great beast that dwells in my nature, recognizing that it too is my friend. The claws of the lion will be my helpers on the path. They will terrify my enemies and open the gates before me. I will learn the paths of the power of the serpent within my passions, so that I may enlist its aid. With the aid of the lion and the serpent, I shall fear no evil, and shall not be troubled by any obstacle. Victorious strength is mine when I have tamed the lion of power. Now, I want to digress for a moment, if Colleen doesn't mind, because this lion of power, or this instinctual energy, is something that we were talking about the other night in Colleen's presentation to us. And Colleen has suggested that we do a second session with her. We did this on Saturday night, so you will find it on the homepage of this YouTube channel under the current videos. And it was really a profound session, and I'm very grateful to Colleen Kubert, who is a renowned sculptress who lives in Santa Cruz, California, and has a wonderful studio and so on. And Colleen has suggested that we do a project over the next few weeks between now and just after the election, which would capture the collective unconscious between now and then, if I understand correctly. And so, yep. Colleen, if you would you expound on this a little bit more?
Well, yes, I think that it's really time for us to pay attention to the collective unconscious because it is so full and so wild right now. There are forces, just as you've referred to in this card, Skip, forces that need to be dealt with in with this gentle hand, carefully. A taming has got to go on in our culture. And I do believe that we can influence a collective unconscious, that we need not just be at its mercy, but that we can consciously participate with it and influence it even. And that's why I'm asking people to engage with their own unconscious in an active way.
So would you explain what you have in mind for us doing between now and, are you accepting November 7th as the date for this?
I sure am. I sure
Okay.
am. Thank you so much for offering it, because I'm happy to. I'm suggesting that if you do a 10-15 minute doodle every day, you'll see between now and the election and through the election, you'll see in your own unconscious, in your own drawing, the movement that's going to be happening. And you might want to follow the guide of Carl Jung. You know, he used the mandala as a form. And I think of the mandala as it's like a spider spins a web. It's the natural thing for a spider to do, or to make a hive. It's the natural thing for a bee to do. Carl Jung says this mandala is the natural thing for us as human beings to be doing. And so if you're not a doodler by nature, if this is a foreign thing to you, then I suggest that you work the way Carl Jung worked and lay that mandala out, a line down the middle of the page and line across the middle of the page. And you might bring in the circle of wholeness, or a square for Earth, for our poor planet right now. And then you just might bring in your own doodle to see what happens. What are your marks going to be around that?
I'm going to run out for just a minute and get my doodle from this morning, and we'll see if I'm on the right track here, Colleen, but others can certainly speak with you while I'm away.
Well, Colleen, I'd like to say I love one working in series, because it becomes that cell by cell, frame by frame, cartoon slice, cross section of the psyche, meditative, daily, and you get not a cadence from discipline, you actually find your own rhythm. Because to me, then time simply becomes the empty bar lines, and your doodles start to become those wonderful notes that after a while you'll do two, or you'll do one that sparks another, and then a chord is literally struck to resonate. So that I really love this exercise. I'm gonna actually, I was looking through an old box today and I found 3 empty sketchbooks. So I think I'm gonna actually just devote one. Unfortunately, it has a black cover, so it'll be the black book.
That's right.
but to play this, I'd rather it be purple or red, but excellent exercise.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you know, that way you can see what's happened, because you can say, oh, I think over the last couple of weeks, I feel a change. I think that a change is going to, you can see it.
You can, and to me, it treats intuition, imagination in all its forms as a muscle, where it's like an emotional expression. You know, what do you feel? People freeze up. Well, if you express it once, okay, maybe a little raw, maybe a little rough, second time better. It's like practice with anything. And to me, that discipline is not just a PITA, you know, it's something that actually is the driver of how these things work. My old joke is that you don't get a runner's high if you're sitting in your chair. You got to go 22 miles, you know, and it's the inspiration always comes when I'm working. If it doesn't, it's just a fleeting thought. Typically.
That's a nice way. Yeah. Do I see you back, Skip? Yeah.
I am back, but I'm going to go dark for a moment so that I can put my scan of this thing onto the computer. And so just give me a moment here.
So let me make sure I understand what you would like for us to do. Are you saying that we just do this as a personal process, or are you wanting us to do this and then return back to this series each week and share the sketches that we've been doing?
Well, we could do that. I was imagining, though, that we would look at them on November 7th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And did that come up?
I'm very curious about what pattern there might be among us. There might be a pattern. There'll certainly be individual stories, but there could be a pattern which would say a lot about our ability to engage together.
Yeah, certainly.
And one thing I may suggest as well, something I do is a kind of self-teaching tool, is that I will input each image into a PowerPoint document and then in sequence, in order, and save it as a PDF. And then I just have this electronic, I can go fast and watch all the motion, or I can go slow and see how it's moving, and just play a game of shifting focus to redirect scale for the pace and the rhythm, so I can see it in action, literally, by just scrolling and watching the images fly by, or going slow and being able to see what catches my eye. So just as a thought, that as you move along, maybe plop them into a PowerPoint one by one. Then at the end, it's not some daunting task. You've incrementally done the whole project already.
Yeah.
But then it becomes literally, you're telling yourself, and like you said, you'll see. And as an architect also, there are times when someone will ask me a question and I'll say, well, I can't answer that. That's an elevation decision. Let's draw it and see what happens. Because you can't talk it, you have to draw it. And then you see the relationships come into play.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome, definitely.
Yeah. How are you doing, Skip?
Sorry, don't mind me. I'm just garbage in, garbage out. Standard problems of dealing with computers. I hadn't thought that you might be here, so okay, here we are. I did manage to get it. So what I'm going to do is, oh, wait a minute. I got to do one other little process so that I can do this properly. Sorry. It's just perfection takes just a little bit longer. But ultimately the strength shines through, I suppose. So it's not.
You might be interested in seeing, I'm going to put up my drawing while you were talking about the tarot card.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah, this, sometimes I take notes this way. And so there are the two pillars. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Yes,
There are the two pillars, one of mercy, and what was the other one?
Severity?
Severity, yeah.
And so the mercy has the soft lines. This is the pillar. Severity is over here. And then this is the gentle hand over the head of the lion in the middle. And we'll see what happens to the drawing as we go on. But it's a way of taking notes from you.
Okay, now we will see if I'm back. I seem to be back. All right, so now I can, with any luck, I can.
Hand over the head of the lion in the middle. Yes, with a rough. And we'll see what happens to the drawing as we go on. But it's a way of taking notes from you.
Okay, somehow. Okay, now we will see if I'm back. So somebody is replaying the fact into the. With any luck, I can.
Hand over the head of the lion.
I'm going to mute Colleen just for a moment. I'm going to mute everybody. And I will show you my thingy here. Somebody is replaying the fact. Oops. Okay, I got it. Here it comes. Okay, now that's not going to work right. Okay, let me unmute you again, Colleen. I got it. But what's happening is that you are playing back what's coming in over the YouTube back into this discussion. Okay, and let me unmute you again. So let me mute you for a moment. Okay, so Colleen, here's the thing. Normally you need to use a headset, okay, because what happens is your computer plays the sound into your room, and then it gets picked up. If you're not using a headset, it gets picked up on your microphone and then gets replayed at a different time. And it makes us have a bit of a problem. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, she left. She left. All right. Maybe she'll come back. Okay, so meanwhile, we had a couple more people. Jennifer joined us and Annette joined us. Welcome. And we are in the process. Here comes, she comes again, I hope. It's always something with this technology. Let's see. Can I not? Okay, I'm showing somebody in the waiting room. I suspect that is Colleen, and for some reason I can't admit you right now. So, oh my God! All right, we seem to have gotten that. Let me do this. Nick, I'm going to make you a co-host, and would you see if you can go on the attendees panel, go into participants in the attendees panel. Oh, maybe she's here now. Ah, there she is. Okay, wonderful. All right, let's try that again. So, Colleen, did you happen to find a headset? We need to unmute you though.
Okay, no, I don't have a headset set up right now.
Okay, all right, well, we'll do our best to see if this works. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to display my mandala from this morning, which is my first attempt at doing what Colleen has in mind for our future program. And so here it is. And so this was sort of as of yesterday. So this was yesterday's news with the president. And so in this mandala, which is very rough, obviously, it's the president's press conference after he announced Judge Barrett, Amy Coney Barrett. And I think before he knew that his tax returns had been exposed, and also it's talking about the Proud Boys news that was coming out of the Proud Boys. And so here we have Amy Coney Barrett, and she's very inflated. She says, I never expected. And so she was so happy. And here we have this little man next to her who is praising her and making her the replacement for Judge Ginsburg, and it'll be a long while before she steps into those shoes. But in any case, then there was the New York Times article. We have the tax returns, quote unquote, and Trump's response to it, fake news. And then we have the Proud Boys who are running around playing with guns. But I don't think that they're as real as the president wants you to think they are. I think they're pretty pathetic guys, basically, because they're they're lonely. They had a 90-minute demonstration instead of 10,000 people for all day rally. They had a few hundred people for a 90-minute rally, and then they went away. And my perception of it is they're not ready for a civil war. They're not going to give up their TVs, their SUVs, and their football on television to go out and fight a civil war on behalf of our president. And then this is me looking inward. So I have this expression on my face represented by the eyes. And I was speaking to my mother-in-law, who was in the room while we were looking at all this news, and very worried. And I said, "Don't worry, Geneva, he's not going to win." And I'm feeling no apprehension at all. And then I also ran a tarot reading yesterday. And let's see if I can replicate it. I guess I didn't. Hold on. My pad is a little bit too big for the scan, but anyway, I did a Celtic cross, and at the center, so these cards are numbered with numbers 1 and 2 in the center. So at the center we have the Moon reversed and the Emperor card. Now those are both major arcana, so that's a big deal. And the Moon reversed would suggest that the president has a lack of, he can't really reflect on what's going on, but he still is president, and so he has that going for him. Then let's see, above him he has the Nine of Cups reversed, and so that's indicating a very dark mood at the White House. And then below, it was the Ace of Pentacles. In the Ace of Pentacles, I said, you can reap money. You still think you can get money. And in the past, which is this card. Now, let me just see if I can in any way pull this actual reading up, because it might be here in my, yes, I do have it. Terrific. Okay, I'm going to actually share I'll share the reading with you so that you can see what I'm talking about. So I have to stop the original share and then go to this one. Okay, so this is the actual tarot reading I did yesterday. And so we have the Prince of Wands reversed, and that's the past. So basically, I'm trying to do these on Twitter. So I'm trying to, within 240 characters, I'm trying to do an entire tarot reading with the reading being the image for the tweet. And so I put this out, and then I very abbreviated did the tarot reading. And so what I said for the past, which is the reversed, what is this? This is the Prince of Wands, right? Yeah. Or it's the Nine of Wands. Okay, Nine of Wands. It's so I said previous ideas are not enough, and so the forward idea is emerging bad feelings or bad mood in the White House. And then where he is right now, the Queen of Pentacles reversed. So maybe Melania is not too happy with him right now about the money situation, especially after the revelation. And also his feminine side is also worried about money. Then this is the environment, number 8. And so the environment is one of confrontation. So the Lovers, as we've talked about in previous weeks, is also about opposites. And so he has to face the opposite. So the election is coming. Number 9 is hopes and fears. So he's hoping that he will have a decisive partner come forward to save his bacon. And I'm betting he thinks that's Putin. And then the Two of Swords is reversed is the outcome card, which is that no, Putin isn't going to come save you, Mr. President. And the reason for that is the Putin has to live after this presidency. And if Putin puts it all in for the president, then we're in trouble. So,
Yeah,
Colleen.
you look up the Two of Swords from the Rider-Waite deck. It's the woman blindfolded holding the two swords up like that. And if you
Right.
look up photos of from the Greek world of Nemesis, that's exactly what she looks like too. So that's a pretty foreboding outcome.
Right. And Jean Hernandez on YouTube has asked me to draw a card. I don't have a deck right here in front of me because I've been so busy getting ready for this. Yes, I do have a deck. I have a mini Tarot Waite deck, so I will do that. But
Skip,
anyway.
that Two of Swords reversed, or as I read them, retrograde, from an astrological standpoint, where they're planted, also could be the lack of focus and smoking hope, basically, rather than the crossed swords with the blindfold of the Inner Mind movie going on of close two eyes to open the third. So it's an excellent point you bring up with that Two of Swords and not such a great outcome, where he's going to be left holding the ball with not a whole lot of ally.
There's 5 reversed cards in this reading, and so that's significant, I think.
Well, I also said the Nemesis thing because Nemesis is the outcome of hubris in the Greek.
Right. Okay.
It is.
So for
and you started out with that with your retrograde reversed moon, and that would also be illusion and madness rather than genius and poetry.
Right. Okay, so for Jean Hernandez, who asked me to draw him a card, I drew the Queen of Wands reversed. So you're in need of creativity, but it may not be coming. Jean, that's what that would suggest to me. But any other comments? It's the Queen of Wands reversed. So any other participants want to comment on that?
I would say the Queen of Wands is a magical, energetic mirror. She is the most self-reflective card in the courts, at least. The one most aware of how her energy works. She is herself.
And so
she's like a
reversed
pyramid.
Is the opposite of that.
Well, exactly. But to me, the retrograde means that's planted so that happens because it becomes oversaturated. So I would be mindful of basically what you said happening by dwelling on balance too much. You're going to have to shake things off more than you're going to be bringing things in.
Right. Now, there is a comment here on my reading or my Proud Boys thing. So Killer T Cell says, I was a proud boy to a degree. Consider the idea that you have been lied to on an industrial scale by global corporate interests that had their hands slapped stealing from the cookie jar. Well, I would say that I have lived the proof of that because I fought global corporate interests in the courts for 9 years. And I found out just how corrupt our system is. And it's an issue of elected judges and all kinds of things. So I agree with you entirely. I don't believe taking down the country is the right answer, however. Okay, now, Colleen, I'd like to come back to you and ask you for your comment here, now that I've shared my yesterday with you, my yesterday and this morning.
Well, your doodle, your drawing. I love your cartooning. I'm glad you're doing that.
Uh-huh.
that you're doing more than just words, but you're putting in the drawings too. And I say keep doing that. The drawing part of it is just wonderful. There is a way of looking at this that I learned from my Jungian teachers here. That the first corner that you spoke of the upper left one,
Mm-hmm.
is the corner of dreams or of ideas or of something that is not yet happened yet, but is an idea. And so there you have it. This will be a good example of that, of how the pattern of how we tend to lay things down. Then to the right of that is the way we see our mission happening in the world. And here you have the truth of Trump's tax reports coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that fits very much in that corner, that's how it's activated in the world.
Right.
So to the left, it's the idea that hasn't quite happened yet. But what is happening is over here on the right. Then in the lower left-hand corner, we always call that the wellspring of the creative. And in this case, it's very dark. And I would say there's aspects of your shadow here. Sort of the opposite way that you would go about doing things. Even as you said, you participated in this in a certain way, your way. But often this is the corner of darkness, and it always is, that's a big word, always, but it's the transformation. It's a place of what must be transformed. And whether it has to, it can be the violent way of going about things has to be transformed. But you have this already, it's happening in your drawing, is this pattern that we as humans lay out. And then in the lower right-hand corner is our ego. It's what we're doing about it, what we're saying about it. And so I really do see skip.conover here. It's wonderful. It's just great. And I think for you to do this every day, just really wonderful.
Well, I will do my best, and thank you for that. Okay, so the only comment I would say about the dreams is, that could be, because once the president appoints Amy Coney Barrett as with a life appointment on the Supreme Court, he may find that the results he get are not what he expects.
Yeah. Okay,
so anyway, let's just summarize now what we might do on the 7th. And then we would like for people to do some sort of doodle or mandala or something like that. Yeah. Daily or how often?
Daily, if you can. Yes.
Right.
Might miss a day or two, but that's all right.
Okay. And then we're going to share these during a Colleen Kubert session with us, something like the session we had Saturday evening. For those of you who didn't see it, you can go back and look at it. We will be inviting our whole group, though, not only the tarot group for this. And the other night when Colleen was on, we had 86 people at one point. And so we're going to share various things to the extent we can. 2 hours is an awfully short time, so.
We'll figure this out as we go, Skip.
Right.
Yeah.
But we will see what we can do, and we may have to carry it over to 2 or 3 sessions possibly, which I'm game to do, but we'll just have to see how it goes. And
Okay.
so Colleen and I will be discussing format a bit more in the next few days with Tim Holmes, my partner in this activity. And Nancy asks, Nancy is one of our regulars, she asks, can the doodles simply be free forms? And the answer to that obviously is yes, emphatically.
Yeah, here's my doodle today. It's my excitement of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that red thing coming through. I drew the mandala first.
Right.
And then my excitement about what's happening in sort of the background. And then this red arrow coming through is, wow, he really wants to do more. This is terrific.
Yeah, well, I've sort of come around to the conviction, Colleen, that Jung's work basically points to the fact that he believed that people had to do something creative in order to maintain their mental health.
I believe it.
And I think you were right on point the other evening when you talked about it. And so we want to talk about it again, probably many times. Not that we have to interfere with your life every time, but for example, with the BTS interest, we have Kylie Laughlin, who's in Davis, California, and has proposed a graphic novel of the Red Book, and he's going to talk about that on November.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
November 14th, so it's going to be a very interesting one. Kylie was deployed in Kosovo when the Red Book came out, and he came back after a year and found this pile of mail. And let's see, where's the picture? I think I can at least hold it up to show you. Okay, so you can get the idea. He cut. Oh, wait a minute. Gotta get rid of this thing. Sorry, Carl, I have to get rid of your background for a moment. Okay, so here's Kylie's drawings, and on the right there, you see him coming back from Kosovo and opening the box, and just awestruck at what he saw, and so he already proposed a graphic novel to the Jung family, and apparently it didn't go too well. So I said, well, Kylie, you know, they have their schedule and we have ours. Some things, their time has come, and particularly with the young people that have been involved with BTS, we really have to promote new styles of bringing things forward.
Absolutely.
And I'm delighted to be sharing that with all of you, but especially with Colleen, who's a lifelong artist and is quite versed in the Jungian oeuvre and has been doing it in her art. And of course, this building behind me is Dr. Jung's statement of faith, confession of faith in stone. In other words, one of the things he worked in was stonemasonry, and he literally built this building. He did have a couple of stonemasons working with him, I think, but over a 16-year period, he and they built it with their bare hands from the ground up. And that was his demonstration, confession of faith in stone. But of course, he did it in the Red Book and many other ways as well.
I would add to that, Skip, too, that aligns with R.A. Schwaller de Lubisch, The Temple in Man. Jung didn't just set his house in order. He built his house to live in as himself container and contained, because he then was the vessel and he was within the vessel, which is to me a wonderfully alchemical expression. 16 years as well is a cycle. So, I mean, there was a rite of passage of a self-initiation that he took to fully go in, I feel.
Right. Okay, now what I'd like to do is go back to our topic for the evening. And so anyway, Colleen and I will be working on this for November 7th, what we've been talking about the last few minutes. And where did I have my, okay, come on. I have my cards to share so that we can, that isn't the one. Okay, what happens is I get so layered on my screen that I can't find the, the very thing I need.
While you're doing that, Skip, too, I'd like to add that I feel none of what we've done so far is a digression from the Strength card. It's all about the power of natural voice from one perspective, and this flow of how this has literally evolved and danced along is very much steeping in Strength card energy.
Right. Okay, here we go again. So now I'm going to go back to the Marseille deck, because that is the deck that Podorowski used for his description of the Strength card. And yeah, I'll leave that one up for the time being. Let's see, I haven't done it yet, but let me do it. Okay, so this is from the Marseille deck, and this is the very first Strength card. And as I was saying earlier, May the Force be with you wasn't invented for Star Wars. It was actually invented at some point before the Marseille deck was created. And so here's what Jodorowsky says about the Strength card. And this is just to put a stake in the sand so we can then talk around it. And he put the Strength card in as number 11. And in a little while, I'm going to ask Jordan to justify that. But it's the number 8 in the Rider-Waite, which is the way I learned it. And so I'm teaching everybody's Strength card together tonight. So he has it at number 11 though. Strength number 11 is the first card of the second decimal series. It is she who opens the path of unconscious energies. It will be noted, the sole card among the major arcana to show this peculiarity, that her name is written on the far left of the cartouche, whereas on the right, 20 lines are collected together like a trigger that will enable a new energy to gather its strength. Okay, so he's talking about these lines on the bottom here, across the bottom, I think. 20 is the number of judgment. Judgment, the card that ends the decimal cycle. Here again, we see an intimate connection between the first and last cards of the cycle. Strength holds in potential everything that judgment will realize, which is to say the emergence of the new consciousness. Strength's message is quite clear. This work of consciousness first passes through a relationship with the instinctive forces. So that's the participation mystique that Colleen was talking about with us the other evening. Whereas the magician, her counterpart of the first series, works from the waist upward and exercises his intelligence. Strength works from the waist to the bottom, allowing the teachings of the depths to communicate with the spiritual authorities of her being. Several details connect her with Arcanum 1. Her hat, in the shape of an 8 or infinity, is receptive, like that of the magician, but hers is open at the top and seems to be winged, a motif that brings to mind the eagles present in Arcana 3, 4, and 11. The intelligence of strength is ready to soar into the cosmos. She takes support from her single visible foot, whose 6 toes correspond to the 6 red points on her hat, the 6 black teeth of the animal, and the 6 fingers on the hand of the magician. See page 127. Okay, we already did that. We can see this as the mark of an exceptional strength that allows her to be firmly anchored to the earth. We can also deduce from this that her source is beauty, the most sublime of pleasures. The nail on her big toe, like the nail of her thumb, is painted red. I'm not sure you can see that in this version of it. Remember that the nails of the human body symbolize eternity because they continue growing after death. Strength's exceptional vitality is displayed by the red color of her nails. Strength is conscious from the tips of her toes to the top of her head. We could say that she is the very potential of consciousness in its aspect as the turning point between high and low, spiritual energy and instinctual energy. No defined landscape is sketched out around her. The sole support she has is a yellow plowed ground, thus a terrain upon which a work of realization has been performed. She is not situated in either time or space, but is anchored in the present as the expression of pure energy. All her activity is concentrated on the relationship with the animal, in the hide of which the yellow or gold force of intelligence incarnates in the flesh-colored part. The spirit incarnates in the animal nature, which in turn makes itself available to communication with the spirit. Strength works with bare hands, grasping animal nature, the manifestations of the unconscious, and her own bodily sexuality. The animal's head is located at pelvis level. Her relationship with the forces at play in the movement of her hands in connection with the animal's jaw opens the field to multiple interpretations. Her hand on our left is pressed against the beast's muzzle, but seemingly without holding or forcing it. The 8 spots drawn on this muzzle indicate that there are no grounds for altering this animal energy. It is perfect as it is. But depending on the understanding or misunderstanding that is reached with the mind, either creativity and illumination will emerge, or blocks and repression. Strength teaches us that essential stakes are involved in the relationship with our animal nature, and that we should not neglect this part of ourselves. This is also why the 6 black pointed teeth of the animal can be seen again in the 6 points on the top of her hat. Intellectual nature listens to the voice of the animal, and the animal hears the influence of the mind. This is the ideal of strength, a dynamic in which the hands dance with the muzzle in a communication that takes the perfectly balanced form of 8, infinity. If we interpret the movement of the hands and the muzzle as a conflict, a power struggle, all manner of difficulties can be read there. The red of the thumb and the tongue become blood spilled in combat. Sexual energy is repressed, and in its turn, the animal nature mutilates the psyche. We can then see that the woman's throat bears a line like that left by decapitation. Oh, wonderful. The lacing of the corset over her chest becomes a closing of the heart prompted by the repression. The body is then perceived as being split into pieces. The individual is subject to the aftermath of an incident of sexual abuse, a trauma, or a toxic, mutilating, and rigid education. However, the details we just examined can also be interpreted positively. The crossbars over the woman's chest are formed by 4 material lines running from left to right that represent animal nature, which intersect with 5 spiritual lines descending from right to left, representing the labor of consciousness. These 9 lines and the color yellow refer to the 9th degree of this decimal series. The sun, which is number 19, in which we see 2 twins, one spiritual and the other animal, completing a new construction together in perfect love. The line across the woman's throat could be a necklace, as the throat is the site of expression and true speech that does not arise solely from the intellect, but also from the depths of the being. Speech in which the conscious and the unconscious find harmony. In a reading, strength refers to the beginning of an activity or a period of life placed beneath the sign of instinct, of creativity. It can also indicate problem of a sexual nature or the emergence of one of the individual's governing centers that was hitherto hidden and is now seeking expression for the first time. We shall need to ask ourselves if the young woman of strength is allowing the animal to express itself, or if she is attempting to rein it in. After an illness or the end of a cycle, strength represents the return of vital energy. Of all the animals present in the tarot, the lion, which we find in the card of strength and in that of the world, is the only one capable of eating the human being. The woman that finds harmony with it represents the most sublime dimension of the soul, the one through which the forces of miracle pass. And then there's this favorite passage of mine anyway, whether others like it or not. And if strength spoke, so this is strength speaking now. I was waiting for you. I am the beginning of a new cycle, and after all you have accomplished, you will not be able to live if you do not meet me. I shall teach you to defeat fear. With me, you will be ready to see all, hear all, taste all, touch all. The senses have no limits, but morality is made of fears. I shall enable you to see the immense swamp of your impulses, but the sublime and the murky. I am the dark force that ascends inside you toward the light. From the center of the depths, from the underground chambers of my being, springs forth my creative energy. I take root in the mire, in what is the densest, the most terrifying, the most demented. Like a burning oven, my sex exhales desires that at first glance seem bestial, but are only the song buried in matter since the beginning of the universe. My intellect, light originating from the stars, cold as infinity, acts upon the eternal heat of magma to produce the creative roar. Heaven and earth unite in this howl, awakening the world. I can make every humble stone become an artwork. I can cause spindly trees to sprout with sap, swollen fruits. I can transform the horizon line into a living purple slash, like a long and endless ruby. Each print my powerful feet leave in the mud behind me is the hive that fills with honey. I let the sublime and ferocious urge the world needs I let the sublime and ferocious urge the world needs circulate in my body from top to bottom, like the waves of an unleashed ocean. Call it whatever you like: sexual potential, energy of matter, dragon, kundalini. It is an immeasurable chaos that takes shape within me. In my belly, a devil and an angel joined together as one, forming a whirlwind like a tree. I splay my branches toward the sky while burying my roots in the earth. I am a ladder with which energy simultaneously climbs and descends. Nothing scares me. I am the beginning of creation. So, okay.
My goodness.
That's kind of right up your alley there, Colleen.
Do.
Wow.
I noticed that the energy explodes off of the ruffle on her wrist, such as the collar on Judge Ginsburg's, her ruffle, her energy exploded off of that collar.
Right.
And the energy explodes. I mean, the hand has the red nails. The energy explodes off of the ruffles of her.
Wait a minute. Let me take this down so you can show yours. Go ahead.
So the actually, I think what I can do here is pin myself. Can I?
Can you what?
There. Okay. So there, I drew I started out with the hand on the head of the lion.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and the pillar of strength and the pillar of mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you spoke of the red nails, that had to happen. That's that issue, the red nails is often the way the feminine is viewed, but then the ruffle is an important part of my archetype or my imagery. It's a disguise, it's a feminine disguise. Just like Ruth Bader Ginsburg's collar is a feminine disguise. And then you refer to this energy exploding out, and how wonderful that was. That's the red lines exploding out here.
Yeah.
To see that that's what's happening. And I love the phrase, the creative roar. How wonderful is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So part of our point here, and let me put us on gallery view so we can all see one another. Part of our point here is that there is so much to talk about. If you're doing a reading for someone, and with each of these cards, what typically happens in a tarot set is you get a little book like this, and it has a bunch of buckwords that sort of get the general gist of it. But if you're going to be a competent reader, you really have to understand the whole depth of these things. And so that's why I'm working through all of these cards in great depth. And so we'll come back to those, but Jason has done his own deck. Now, what happened to that? I think.
You mean Jordan? Jason has Argonauts.
Jordan, I beg your pardon. Yes,
I don't have
Jordan.
any. I don't have any Argonauts, so it's
Right.
common. It's common.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. I would like to say, Colleen, I really resonate that you picked up on the ruffles and attributed to RBG, because those ruffles, there's a point of emanation. And that's one of those almost sacred adornments in this card, as if the Empress gifted her that emanation ability.
Yeah.
Almost like from the Yoniverse in a way. So that power of voice, that expression that transforms inner contents into voice.
So Jordan has done a deck based on his skill as an architect. And so I'm going to share I'm going to share both his justice and his strength card, because while we're talking about number 8, the strength card actually in his is number 11. So I'd like Jordan to have you just explain why the difference.
What's interesting about this, and I'll synopsize as concisely as possible, but there's a long form historical discussion / argument about, is strength 8 or 11, is justice 8 or 11. Now, for example, the Thoth deck has strength as 11 by Aleister Crowley. Bob Place, or most Robert Place's alchemical deck, also has strength at 11. Interestingly enough, it seems that from my research, Aleister Crowley's deck was put with strength at 11 for astrological sequence reasons. Whereas Bob Place's deck, the alchemical tarot, or at least that one of his several decks, was placed there from a sequenced order of the operations in alchemy. Now, Rider-Waite Smith, the RWS, then of course has strength at 8. My reasoning, though, is neither of those three. I took the tarot, to me, as a process through the question, hey, are you playing with a whole deck? And which is, kind of slough it off to say, the process of individuation, psychosynthesis. And from my perspective, you take the Chariot, for example, right prior, which is the onset of syzygy and harnessing opposites. And then you put in power of voice with 8 as strength, and then go to meditation in a way in the Hermit. I find the power of voice to be premature at that point in the individuation process, where then I jumped up to the wheel, completion of one epochal cycle. And then I go to strength as the power of voice that can only happen after justice, where you balance those chariot opposites and harness that Maat, M-A-A-T, heart against a feather, to then go to the hanged man, which is a higher octave enlightenment, even when there are temporary periods of enlightenment of the Hermit. So hanged man as higher octave of Hermit being more meditation, hanged man being connection within and about. So my reasoning is the sequence of individuation as I see it, and where the power of natural inner animal voice comes from. And to me, to simply synopsize my, say, immutable kernel, if it would be, of what the strength card would be, it's an inner force, an inner contents that comes to transform the inner contents into the power of your voice in speaking, so that what is within is not what is outside or about, but those inner contents fuel and drive then clarity of voice. So to me, clarity of voice can happen at 8. Argument, fact structure, thoughts, facts, experience, research. But to me, clarity of voice comes after the other cards through the cycle, up to the cycle. And then so I posit then strength at 11 as natural animal inner voice.
Okay. Nick, do you have a thought about this?
Yeah. Well, I don't think that it matters entirely that much which one comes at 8 or 11. As Jordan and you both have said, you know, different systems go about it different ways. I found that both are equally satisfying, and particularly, you know, if you want to be, if you want to follow in the tradition, I'm sure that people will assert that 8 is the way to go. But I found when reading that Sally Nichols book, you know, she's discussing the Marseille deck, and that's got Justice at 8. I found it to be satisfying archetypally, you know, and the thing that I was wondering is when you get to that point just beyond the Chariot, once you've established a firm ego, it can make sense either that the next lesson that comes to you is that you have to learn how to mediate the kind of lower based animalistic energies and channel them into a creative outlet, or that you have to learn the lesson of balance. So they both work for me.
And I appreciate that, Nicholas. And I will outright say I don't find one or the other correct. To me, it's neither either. It's both and.
Yeah.
And to speak directly to that, I actually find that the Strength and the Justice cards are the two anomaly syzygy pair cards that mirror across the wheel. And there's an asymmetry where Justice is just isness, fact structure. Yeah. It's empty vessel, and then Strength is filling the vessel with voice, so that whether it becomes a chicken and the egg. And so to me, they're both correct. It just depends on, for example, when I'm designing the tarot deck, I have to decide. Mm-hmm. I can't make it both and. I have to, okay. And I spent a while trying to, I read with the Thoth, I read with the Alchemical. I don't much read with the Rider-Waite, but I respect the Rider. Well, and I went back and forth and played a little internal tennis rally with what's 8, what's 11. And I ended up finally just coming down to 2 words: psychosynthesis, individuation. And on the path of individuation, that was my reasoning.
All right. So someday we'll talk about psychosynthesis, and individuation is covered in literally hundreds of videos on this YouTube channel. So yeah. I don't want to get too far away from the tarot here. So, and I do want to hear from the 5 women who are here on the session. And so Annabelle or Jennifer, Annette doesn't look like she's successfully connected, but Annabelle, do you want to say something here?
Hi, thank you. I'll go back to a question I had right at when you were first describing the card and describing how the symbol for infinity is over the maiden's head or the woman's head or the goddess's head, and that looks like an 8. And I was wondering, from Jung's point of view, what is the connection between those two symbols? I know that, I mean, symbols meaning the 8 being a picture, right? And each of the numbers I know means something. For example, 3 obviously is a very big one for Jung. So I wondered how much infinity and 8 have meaning that either overlaps or is in some harmony, or where that comes from the Jungian point of view.
Well, I think from the Jungian point of view, and mind you, Jung didn't talk much about the tarot per se, but he did talk about chaos and infinity quite a lot, and so did Erich Neumann. And it seems to me, and this is an observation of mine, that the number 8 is hugely significant in various sort of occult ways. Okay, and one of the ways I want to point this out is the hymn number in what's called the Navy hymn. Now, to appreciate what I'm about to tell you, I live in Annapolis, Maryland, which is the home of the U.S. Naval Academy. And this is the Navy hymn. And the number of the hymn in the hymnal is 808, which if you just turn it on its side, represents the universe and then chaos on all sides. Okay, in other words, the idea of the Ouroboros, the snake that's biting its tail from alchemy. And so I have always thought that it was incredibly significant that this number was selected for the Navy hymn, which is Eternal Father strong to save, whose arm doth bind the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep, and so on. You probably have heard it. I played it at the beginning of Red October, I think, or no, Crimson Tide, I think, with Crimson Tide. They played it.
It was.
And it also was in, well, it's been in a lot of seagoing movies, but the sea is chaos, of course, and the 8 of infinity represents chaos. And so here we have the feminine being the organizing principle, okay, because the masculine is pretty chaotic out there, right? But the feminine organizes things. It says, okay, now you have to get down to work and make sure you feed this family now that you've created it, type thing.
Skip, I'd like to speak directly to Annabelle's question in regards to the number 8, the lemniscate, the infinity symbol, and you even mentioned 3 from Jung, very important. Not just even in Trinity, just in the symbol of the Arabic number 3. I personally view the Fool, for example, not as card 0. It's card circle, the unsquared, pure circle of the alchemists. It has not been touched. It's the interstice that lives in the space between. But then if I take a circle, if you grab a rubber band and take a circle and turn it, just rotate, it becomes an 8. And that's the paused process. An 8 is a very plateau number. So then you take the Arabic symbol 8, and that represents the lemniscate, drop it down to take a nap, so to speak, and it becomes everything. And it goes back in action. But also, if you take the 8, which is a circle and a circle, or a world on top of a world, and you slice it down the middle, and you take the right side, there's a 3. So you start to get these numbers of plateau points, and I feel like 0, 8, and 3 play a game. And it's arbitrary, honestly. I could pick 9 and stay with it all day long, and that the multiplication tables are a mirror, or every number added to 9 comes back to equal to 9. But I think your question, Annabelle, about the lemniscate and 8 and 3 is wonderfully expressed, because you take a circle and then you turn it, it's a lemniscate.
Okay, let's go on. Jennifer, did you have anything to say? Annette, for some reason, we're not hearing you. And so I don't know how to turn it on from this end, but, or Shen, do you have anything to say here?
Oh, can you hear me? I'm trying to use like a new headset.
Yes.
Okay. So from what I'm seeing, that strength is it's a very unifying card. There's a lot of balance of opposites, and particularly oriented towards bringing ideas into the real world. It kind of reminds me of the magician in that respect. But there was also something about the lion, or the presence of a predatory animal in the strength cards. Something about that stood out to me. There's a series that I recently revisited about a character who's she's very diffident. She's very smart, but she's very diffident, and she sort of surrounds herself with this with motifs of predatory animals, usually bears. And it's kind of reminding me of that in some ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been looking at other.
I'm going to have to leave. I actually have a Jung study group tonight.
All right. Enjoy.
I hadn't anticipated this. Is just wonderful. I really like being with your group tonight, and thank you very much for including me the way you have.
Thank you, Colleen. It was great, and I'll be in touch with you at some point here soon.
Pleasure to see you again.
I look forward to seeing you another time, Colleen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everyone should make sure to watch the session we did with Colleen last Saturday. It was really terrific. Thank you so much for that, Colleen. Okay, so we do have some comments on the YouTube channel, and I think I ought to read them. Raquel Fonseca says, I have a different perspective on the moon card reverse. The problem is not as big as it looks. The moon is knowing how to walk in the dark using just our senses, not with our eyes. And P. Sherman says, the interpretation says more about the interpreter than anything else. That's the point of the tarot, and it might also be the point of the Mysterium, the participation mystique that we were talking about earlier.
Skip, if also too, that comment about walk with your senses, not with your eyes, that's a wonderfully apt point, especially because if you think about it, the moon has no natural light. It is all reflection. All of its light comes from an outside source. So that close your eyes and use your senses, see with your senses and not your eyes, is a wonderfully apt way to put that card.
Right. And so my apologies to Samantha Wright, who had put a question to Colleen, and I didn't see it until after Colleen has left. But she said, what do you mean by disguise? And I think I'll just venture a guess, since I did not hear what was said, but I suspect it had something to do with persona. And Samantha also said, I love the idea of Yoniverse. And Raquel says, absolutely adored what Jordan said. Raquel, if I recall it right, I think that Jodorowsky said that the tarot doesn't have a structured chronological line, but I might be wrong. And Samantha said she would try to get into Zoom, but I haven't seen her yet. And
she's the one who had such really wonderfully deftful comments last.
Right.
There she is. There she is. She's
she has come. Okay, there she is. Yes. Okay. All right.
Is she on Zoom, or is she?
Yeah, she's coming into Zoom.
There she is. Excellent.
There she is. Hi, Samantha. Welcome.
Hi, I'm real.
Welcome.
Yes. Okay.
I didn't know. I'd be so happy to be
okay.
on.
Well, you have an open mic, so welcome, and go ahead and.
Well, hi everybody who's been. I've known you guys. I've seen you, but I've known me by my typing while I was multitasking. So it's nice to meet you guys officially.
You as well.
Thanks. So what I wanted to say two things. I'll try to be concise. I think I started to answer my own question as you were talking, but about the Peter Ginsburg cravat, but it's a ruffle, So, but I won't do that. I'm going to compartmentalize and focus. Sorry. Thanks. It was about, Mumble Tarot. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Enrique Enriquez.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Wow. You talk about power of voice and words, and you want to split down, dissect the middle, and he just puts them in a blender and pulls pieces out, and they still work. He's an amazing human being.
Well, I
And
just,
what was the name again? It's Mambo Tarot.
oh no, I was referring to one aspect of a teaching that I think originated with Enrique Enriquez, but I learned it from a YouTube video of someone who was a fan of Enrique Enriquez, so I can't say it came directly from
I
him.
think instead of mumbo jumbo, it's mumbo tarot.
Oh, I said mumble.
Yeah, mumble, right.
Yeah, but
So-
that's
But
kind of
say it again, Jordan.
mumble.
Mumble. MUMBLE, like mumble or
Mumble Tarot.
Yeah, mumble tarot.
Which is just it's one of the ways of reading. And he's really into deconstructing, and there's no fixed symbolism, and he thinks the Kabbalah, there's nothing about that involved. But one way you can read a card is by word association. So if you were saying, anyway, the reason I'm referring to that is because I believe what Colleen said before she hopped off is she used the word maidenhead. Maidenhead, she was referring to literally the maiden's head and the hat and the 8, and that being close to heaven. And I'm just paraphrasing, so I'm probably losing some of the power of what she said. But I was thinking, maidenhead and virginity, and the fact that the lion, the lion is near her, parts, her vagina,
her yoniverse.
Yoniverse. It's near her yoniverse, and I was just thinking about, I was tangenting in my own mind about this article I read several years back about the word virgin, and the person suggesting that virginity should be a term that has nothing to do with whether or not you've had sex. I didn't read the whole article, but it was really interesting about how it's a state of purity of mind, and that participating in sexual acts shouldn't, according to this person, shouldn't have any bearing on your purity and your goodness. But that the concept of virginity, especially as it applies to women, but not just women, there's an association with purity, and it's necessary in order to be morally upright, right? Totally divorced from your own sexuality. And so I think it's interesting that there is something powerful in an ownership of sexuality. Is she taming a beast that is external to herself, or is it her own control of her own sexuality? Her hands in the, in the mouth of the lion. And yet she is connected. So let me just finish this out. Sure. Sorry. And yet, so she has that, but yet she's still a virgin. Her maidenhead is still intact. Anyway, that was my mumble tarot. Yeah.
Well, Skip, if I may, quickly, and in short order, I can speak. That's a resonant comment.
We're very short on time, so let's not.
We are, but if you look, Samantha, actually, your point is well taken. To me, that's the inner animal voice. That's where natural voice comes from. And if you look at just the posture of the lion and the posture of her hands, she has no force in her hands. They're caressing, they're touching, they are near and on, but they are not ripping. She is not pulling an alligator's mouth open. The lion is there. And then if you look especially at the tail is between its legs, but it's not in a submissive posture. It's I'm not afraid, I'm comfortable, I'm at home, the way it curls. So even if you know cats and dogs and lions, you look at that tail, we're buddies, we're family. So I would say specifically that's her own inner animal. And then her natural voice comes from that. And especially the sexuality would be another expression of that natural voice.
And
well,
Skip,
I do have an alligator coming, but go ahead.
I just want to say two words, and I hope I'm understood when I say this, because I know we have to wrap up, but vagina dentata, 3 words.
Right.
Vagina dentata myth. Okay. That's
right. No. That's the whole teeth thing. You get myth and what has been taught to put people off the path, so to speak.
Okay, I'm estimating that we're going to have to go at least another hour here. So we're not going to firmly close at 10 o'clock.
May I suggest a quick bio break just to go 3 hours?
You can take a bio break.
All right, you guys, I'll just be right back.
I found my nerds.
Okay, yeah, we're your nerds. And as you were talking, Samantha, what came to my mind as I thought about this is I want to share with you again, but now with the other 4 big time decks. Okay. I think have I gotten it? Yeah. Okay. So you're seeing, you should be seeing the Crowley, the Golden Dawn, the Rider-Waite, and the Marseille. Is that right? Okay. So I just want to say one thing about the Marseille. Now, as I look at it, I remember in my youth, my mother used a diaphragm, and it reminded me that that hat with the figure 8 looks like a diaphragm that's been bent back on itself, and it makes me wonder what women were using in those days. I mean, this is a deck from 1482, and so I think that's significant. Now, very quickly, because I want to show you some other things that are pretty impressive, but I did want to share with you, let's see, where is it? Oh, the Thoth Tarot. I have right here, I have the little book that's in this set, and I just wanted to read what he said here. Okay, so in the Thoth Tarot, strength is regarded as lust. And I just wanted to read this little bit here because it describes the 7 heads of this lion. So this card was formerly called Strength. It implies, however, not only strength, but joy and strength exercised. The 7 heads of the lion are respectively that of an angel, a saint, a poet, an adulteress, a warrior, a satyr, and a lion serpent. The central figure is the woman, who has surrendered herself to all the forces of creation and who rides astride of the beast. In her left hand, she holds the reins as representing the passion which unites them, and in her right hand, she holds aloft the cup, aflame with love and death. In this cup are mingled the elements of the sacrament of the eon. In the background are the bloodless figures of the saints on whom this mirage travails, for their whole life has been absorbed into the Holy Grail. So I just thought that was an interesting description of that. I don't have the Golden Dawn here, but again, the Golden Dawn really relies on the plain vanilla, lion structure, but this Thoth deck is awesome, and I had to
Skip. That's a wonderfully written and wonderful. I'm glad you read that, especially right at the end, that the lives of those 7 saints are fully absorbed in the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail would be the temple in man, temple of woman, the temple of us each.
Well, and wholeness.
And wholeness, so that we are the vessel.
Holy Grail is in effect wholeness.
Yes.
Now, what I want to share here is something new that I got this week, which
Sweet.
Yeah, is the Splendor Solus Tarot. And this is a really special deck that was only published last November or September, I guess. And it was developed by 2 women in the UK. And what they did was they took the images of Splendor from Splendor Solus, which was an alchemical book that was written in 1582. So it goes way back. And then they applied these ideas to the Tarot. And so I'm going to share with you what is here on the, let's see if I make this bigger, maybe you can see what's written here. So as I read it. Okay. So they say, I am the rebus, double-bodied one, inner alchemy of strength, daughter of the flaming sword, leader of the lion. I come that courage and strength flow through you as balanced powers, riding safely as a radiant gift you may shine upon others. I am artisan of the intelligence of the secret of works, diffusing an influence from the Most High blessing. All Jupiter Mars experience in the four worlds are woven into my alchemical path. I am strength's inward vision, holding the balance of all the activities of spiritual beings, so she may raise the lion serpent symbol powers of fire to those of light. As rebus, I am female, male, united, different yet equal. In me, the two bodies of this art, sun and moon, which are earth and water, have combined forces by assimilating both earthly and spiritual food. I will bring forth the higher powers of the fifth quintessence. Through my arts, brute willpower is transmuted into willingness to serve, and tremendous creative powers are tenderly born. Like the chick from the egg, only strength can hold all steady. Awakened consciousness, inspiring the subconscious to accept and tame the powers as they rise. Learn this, dear alchemist, and you drink the healing tincture of the sun. Okay, so that's what they said. And this is the image that they were working with from Splendor Solus. And the rebus is a androgynous creature here, obviously, and represents both sides of the equation. And so I previously said that the Tarot of the Divine was my favorite deck, and I think it still is. I think this is a little bit too alchemical for some tastes, but there are some of the images in the Splendor Solus that I really love. And as time goes on, I will share those with you, because one of them is one of the most important images in all captivity. Let's see if I can find it quickly here. Okay, here it is. I'll just hold it up to the screen and let me put it on speaker view for a moment. Okay, so this is the image, and what we have, oh shoot, let me get rid of this background again for a minute. Okay, all right, so here's the image, and what we have here is civilization going on all around, and across the top is Apollo going across as the sun here, and then in this bottle are three dragons, which represent the instincts, and they've been bottled up. Okay, and that is an alchemical thing that I've always loved ever since I found it, and it's hard to find sometimes, but I thought you should have a chance to take a look at it again.
Thank you.
And that is in the Temperance card, by the way, just so you know.
And the name, oh, sorry. The name of that deck one more time?
The Splendor Solus Tarot, Inner Alchemies of Mithraic Light.
Oh, wow.
Here, oh, wait a minute.
Splendor Solus Tarot. Thank you.
And it's by Marie Angelo. And what I really like about it is, because I'm struggling with the Kabbalah right now, let me get this background out again. What I really like about it is in the suit cards, they actually have the Kabbalah, and they have the planets that relate to the Kabbalah for each of the suit cards. And so, for example, this one is the 5 of Cups. So it shows the symbol of the cup over the Kabbalah position. Okay, and so if you're interested in doing tarot with Kabbalah and with alchemy, this has got it all right on one card. And so all the suit cards are like that. They all have, and they're different by color. So for example, the fire cards are red and the water cards are blue.
Mm-hmm.
And
elemental colors.
yeah, and the earth card, or I'm sorry, the air cards are yellow here.
Yeah.
And the green cards are the Pentacles, which is the earth. Okay, just
that which grows, right?
Yeah, and so I haven't read it all yet. It's quite a complicated deck, but I urge you to look at. There's a trailer about this. In fact, just look up Splendor Solus Tarot, not on Amazon, but look for it on Google or something, and you'll find their website, and you can see a little talk about what they did. But the woman who did it has been teaching an MA course in art history based on this for 10 years. And so she's quite capable. And
is she at the University of Kent and the MA of Cosmology and Divination program have?
Yeah, that may be true. I can't say it's the University of Kent, but I think it is some Midlands University. So that
right.
You might know about that indeed. Okay, so that I wanted to share with you. Now let's see what else I have to share with you.
And I'd like to openly say too, there was a comment about the Lost Boys before, and she indicated it was the Lost Boys from Peter Pan, and I had gone to the Lost Boys the movie. And I just typed in the chat to make sure, but I meant no disrespect. In fact, it was complete and total resonance. So I just wanted to put that out here also openly, that previously my comment.
Yeah, Raquel has made a comment, which I don't quite understand the word. And Samantha, you may know, she has said, for a very rational person, the moon card can be very anguting, anguishing,
Yeah, I don't think it's the word.
I think it's mumble tarot. I think it's just maybe a slip of the. I'm teasing. I think they just misspelled it accidentally. I'm assuming.
Okay, fine.
I've never heard the word.
Okay, all right. So moving along here, I really have some things that I wanted to share with you. So if you're getting tired, I think feel free to leave at any time, but I'm going to work through this stuff. Last week and the last few weeks, we've enjoyed the She-Wolf deck. And I'm trying to give both a masculine and a feminine perspective here. So that's part of what I'm trying to do with some of these descriptions. And so here's the She-Wolf deck. And again, she has lust and strength and Leo. And here's what she says. Artwork, describing her artwork. Illumination. A woman with a snake of desire curled around her arm rests with a powerful lion. Behind them, the sun rises. This is a more simple composition, and for good reason. The relationship between the woman and the lion is one of power, of the drive to understand the great beast's lust for life. Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is our identity. So who are we really? And then the light in the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck, the one that I was just showing you with the 7 heads. This card is called Lust. When we are born, we immediately house worlds of curiosity and passions for everything around us. As we mature, our inner world becomes rich and our lens to the outer world becomes more fixed, refined. This card asks us to take a step aside and allow the inner beast to rule for a while. What does the animal in us want? There is a certain purity of being that animals possess. You may call it refinement as well, where only a certain set of elements are of great importance. Love, family, food, territory, sleep, sex, warmth, the hunt. When things are simplified like this, clarity ensues. It is time to find that clarity, that lust for life. Shadow, we may be allowing a myriad of inner troubles to muddle our clarity. We should seek to meditate upon our spirit animal, calling them forth to help us distill our current needs and desires. Conversely, we may be allowing our inner animal to recklessly rule and be of detriment to ourselves and others. There is a healthy moderation in all things, which we should always observe. The mantra for this, her mantra for this, my inner animal will guide me to my lust for life. That's beautiful, I think. Any comments?
What's interesting to me, yeah, I'm not muted. What's interesting to me is that takes the wonderfully direct line of the power of voice being all that which has been emanated rather than emanating. So that the things out here, voice, sound, visceral, you become clairaudient, you can hear clearly, clairsentient, you can see, think clearly, or claircognizant, depending on how you want to call it. Clairvoyant, you can see clearly. And then there's also another, which is with the lust and desire, clairgustance. Most sommeliers have clairgustance. They have clarity of taste.
Mm-hmm.
And they could see every little piece and part. So I think that it's a wonderful story about the external reality.
I like her checkerboard here indicating that life is this intertwining of pluses and minuses, and it's also represented by by these lines on the bottom of the card as well. So she's talking about an antiodromia and how life isn't a direct line. You just learn the rules and everything will be hunky-dory. It doesn't work that way.
Well, especially when you use the word anantodromia. I mean, that's perfect, because even the architect in me saw those lines as an archaeological cross-section of the strata of the previous checkerboard floors.
Right.
And
okay, there's one thing I wanted to say about the issue of the 8th or the 11th card. When I learned the tarot, I learned it in the following way, that the first 10 cards are basically physical life, and that the cards after 10 are the cards of the spiritual life. And maybe the Justice card is karma based on what you've done in physical life up till now. But these are archetypes that one has to learn in one's physical life, the first 10, including the possibility that somebody's going to spin the wheel of life or the wheel of fortune, and you're going to be back to square one, which has happened to me quite a few times in my life. So I'm well familiar with that card. And I'm also familiar with karma. And Colleen and I share a very special karmic connection, which I can't talk about, but nonetheless, it's why we have this respectful relationship that you saw earlier. And even though we've never met. But the other point is what we're doing here, or what I think I'm doing here, and since I'm the host and I'm the instigator here, what I think I'm doing here is just pointing out that these archetypes are pretty vast. They can be interpreted and come out in life in very many different ways, but they come out everywhere. Okay, they come out everywhere in everybody's life, regardless of whether you live in poorest Africa or in, the Trump Tower, let's say, and so understanding these major archetypal powers, or these are invisible powers that exist in our lives and in the universe, and they're very broadly spread. So, for example, the Empress power goes back to the feminine, all the way back to single cell organisms. And so all of our millions of ancestors that came before us all had a mother energy involved, and that's how we exist. Fortunately, we're the winners of this incredible lottery of many empresses that have brought us forward. And that's true of all of these cards. And so I'm just trying to mainly point out what these archetypes are about right now. As some of you know, I've already done 18 videos on tarot reading as a divination technique, and that is, I will mention it in the description here, and I have every week before this. There's a playlist to the divination of tarot. But I don't think we should get too hung up on what the numbers are, because in a divination, for example, you don't know what's going to come up. Anything could come up, and it could relate to past, present, or future. It could relate to your basis in life, where you are now, where your environment is, so all these different things. I mean, just in a Celtic cross, we have 78 cards and 78 reverse cards, so that means 156 possible meanings for each card, just if you pick one card. And then if you put it out in a Celtic cross reading, then you have 10 more positions. So that means 156 times 10 are the things that a tarot reader, an able tarot reader, can talk about. Now, what's the significance of that? The significance is that in a reading, it really doesn't matter what you say. Okay, it really does not matter what you say. I mean, Samantha has this frown on her face.
That's my listening face. I was just listening.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's intent. Didn't look like she's going to eat you.
So here's the point. Here's the point. In a reading, a reader has no idea how the reading is affecting the person for whom they are reading. And so, for example, I'm reading for the President of the United States right now every day and putting it out on Twitter. And I have no idea if he's ever seen any of these things, but but it may be affecting the collective unconscious in ways that we don't know. This is Colleen's point about the artistic activity that we're talking about doing. And so when you read something as a tarot reader, as you've seen, we've done over 2 hours talking about different ways of looking at this idea of strength and the fact that all of us, in some sense, no matter who we are, no matter what age, in some sense, we are managing the forces that are around us to live our lives. Okay. And that's true if we're an infant or 90 years old. Okay. So if we're an infant, we very quickly learn how to be a little king or queen, and to make our demands known. Okay. we just scream bloody murder and mommy comes and fixes it for us. Right. And we don't even know what we want, but you know, if you look at children under 2 years old, they're little kings and queens. They know what they want and they're demanding it, and you have to provide it. And so they know how to manage their strength, and all of us do in some way. But by discussing these different ways of looking at these cards, it's a way to also see our own lives in different ways.
Mm-hmm. And
so just as an infant, we see our lives in either comfort or hunger. And as we get older, we have bigger and bigger demands and needs, but we learn how to manage our strength and the forces of the universe that then guide our life and give us the strength to go through. And so, yes, it's lust, but I'm not wildly happy about making it all about lust, for example, because I think it goes way beyond sexuality. And
I would say, Skip, you made a wonderful point about, especially, don't get hung up. That's the kicker. I mean, as a professional reader, no one wants to hear me give them a bedtime story to read some book, and the reading is, as you said, you don't know what you're going to say, and the words are going to come out. And as you learned, day up to physical up to the wheel, and then spiritual after the wheel. And then there's some people who say day all the way from the beginning to the devil, and then the night comes and the star. And then you always ask, well, what about the hermit? Oh, well, that's the first inkling of the night. And that breaks the whole day-night thing down. And there's so many wonderful strata, perspectives of ways to look at it, that back to what you said, that don't get hung up. And even on lust, I mean, if I dispense with Aleister Crowley directly, so I don't, for example, take beginner's mind about his own personal lusts, which are vast and many, and just think lust as intense desire, there's almost a devil card aspect of just earthly desire. But I get it, because then lust, if I take it from a 7 deadly sin perspective, is a horrible, horrible thing. But if I take a lust as a I, capital M, must create my lust for expression, then I get the Turkish proverb of they who are in love with beauty, whose heart is in love with beauty, never grows old. I mean, so I think it comes back to your don't get hung up statement, which was so apt in the beginning, because it speaks directly to appreciate the perspectives. And in a reading, take the one that presents, or interpret, or
the reader needs intuition,
right,
and should read confidently, just blurt it out. The way I've said it in the past is I could walk into an auditorium with 1,000 people in it, and as long as everybody would give me the benefit of the doubt, I could take a tarot deck, throw it across the stage, without doing a specific layout. I could walk across the stage and do a reading, and every single person would think I'd done a reading for them. I wouldn't have the I wouldn't have the slightest idea what the reading meant to any one of them.
Right, right. And also,
but all of them would know what it meant to them. Okay.
And that makes, was it Tim's comment about the art becomes alive when the viewer experiences it, that it's dead to him on the participation mystique, that
Right.
then they receive the reading the way they do. It's like if someone interprets emotion in an email, that's theirs.
Right. So this is a Carl Jung Depth Psychology Reading Group website, YouTube channel, right? And so the point is, Dr. Jung was about archetypes, and what I'm showing you is that these are the major archetypes of life, and they have many facets. They if you look just on Amazon, you can probably find 200 tarot decks, and I've found one website that had like 1,000 of them. And
well, yeah, they're the collectors, for example, even in Britain, I think the biggest collection is probably up to over 3,000.
Yeah,
even the library of, I was just featured in the Library of Esoterica that Jessica Hundley put together from Taschen Books, who Taschen makes coffee table books look like they need to get a new dress. I mean, it's like, because they're just so exquisite and they have so much substance too.
So Taschen has a tarot book?
They just put out the Library of Esoterica.
Oh, okay.
They contacted my publisher back in February to ask permission to use 2 of my images. Of course, I immediately just jumped and said yes, because wow, that's like an Oscar for a tarot reader. You know, and then I got the word about 4 weeks ago that I never got the word whether they decided to they made the final cut or not. I got the word that your copy's on the way. It's like your contributor's copy's on the way. But to look at that, it's only $40. It's 3 inches thick. It's a tome. I think it has a 500 plus images, and it's Jessica Hundley's selection of the ones from all time, all 570 years. I think you might get a kick out of it.
I'm sure I would, and thank you for mentioning it. What I would say about Taschen, however, just a caveat for my Jungian followers who are into dreams and visions and things, is that you cannot get too hung up on images and symbols because the images and symbols that relate to your depth psychology, your personal depth psychology, are yours, and they may have nothing to do. There's a book that Taschen put out called the Book of Symbols, and it's a beautiful book. It's about this thick, and I have a copy of it, and it has, I don't know, 1,000 different nouns that Jungian analysts have given all the possible meanings that they could think of about all of those nouns. And the problem is that all the things they could think of are nothing like what might come out of your mind. And so I've already seen some example of that in the cards that I've shown tonight. I'm going to show a few more, but the point of it is, I mean, I had a dream one time that was about my knee, and only I knew that. I'll tell the dream very briefly. It was at the beginning when I was first starting to do my local reading group, and I was very excited about having a number of people who would actually come to a local restaurant. In fact, at the time it was to a local Buddhist center, and talk to me about Jung. I thought that was great, right? And so I had this dream, and at the same time, I was having a problem with my knee. My knee was dying on me, and ultimately I had to have it replaced. But this was before it was replaced. And so in this dream, I'm in a dark parking lot. And in the parking lot, there's this beautiful white limousine. And my tarot group is all with me, and we're all jumping in this white limousine like we're going to a wedding and we're going to have a big party together, etc. And then somebody says, well, where's Albert? And we looked around and we couldn't find Albert. And so I look outside the limousine, and over in the corner of the parking lot is this dark Nazi truck with actual Nazi soldiers. And they're dragging Albert away, and they're throwing Albert into the back of this truck and driving away with him. And so I pointed out that Albert in that dream was my knee. There's no way, because I was envisioning my leg being amputated so that I could have a new knee, right? Which in effect is what happens. I mean,
Right.
You know, they don't actually amputate your leg, but they certainly separate your leg bones. And,
yeah, that's an intense, the whole Gestapo aspect of the absolute dismemberment, because you basically take out just above, just below, it's gone. So you have this anti-gravity floating device called a body over a calf that is just hanging out there, and then they put the new one back in. I mean,
I was seeing the surgeons as the Nazis.
Right. This stealing away your knee.
Who said that?
Oh, Samantha, I was just saying that Nazis have become symbolic of an ultimate form of oppression, and the fact that your fear drew that image up because of the fears around your body.
Right.
It's an example of how symbols can change.
Yeah,
literal.
They stole away your knee, you know.
Right. Now, Jennifer made a comment here earlier, which we didn't get to, and I'd like to read. It says, I remember reading somewhere that in traveling the paths up and down the columns of severity and mercy, you can't go straight up or down either one. You must cross over from one perspective to the other at some point. It takes strength of character, process of individuation to make this change in perspective. So I like the idea of strength being a crossing place between Jabura, I guess, and Hesed. Sorry about not talking, but I get very self-conscious when I try to do that. Okay, so Jennifer, this is a very good point that you're making here. And I do know enough, and I've been studying the Kabbalah for a few weeks now in preparation for dealing with this later on. What clearly comes out is this back and forth between the columns. And my friend Eva Rider, who did a session with us a few weeks ago on the Kabbalah and the Tarot, was saying exactly this, that there's the path of the fool and the path of the sword. And so the fool is coming up out of the earth toward spiritual life, and then has to come back down to the earth, and it has to come back through the spiritual life back down into the earth and physical reality. And so I was actually believe it or not, today I had a procedure where they put steroid in my hip so I can walk, and I was listening to that on my way up to Baltimore and back to get that done. So the wages of sin, being a U.S. Marine is a great thing when you're a teenager or early 20s guy, but you're really a ground pounder. And when you get up to be 70, you find out that you really pounded your legs. And so I'm working up to my third joint replacement.
Well, you ground. Yeah, definitely, Samantha. I mean, you ground pounded, but now the ground's going to pound right back. It's just more patient.
That's
than us.
right.
It waits about 5 decades.
Yeah, that's the downward slide.
Yeah, I know. I
Okay.
agree with that.
All right. So there's some more cards I want to show you quickly, and we'll try to wrap this up.
But actually, to quickly speak to Jennifer's comment, though, about pretty much the pachinko ball of you have to, it's not so much bouncing around, but there is no straight path. And it's like, to me, it's just like traveling a circle. It may look like an arc, but it's composed of infinite segments.
Right.
And so at every twist, at every turn is another Sephiroth. So that Jennifer brought that up, that's important, because you don't just go up and down.
Point, Jennifer.
Yeah, up and down, right and left. You
For
move
participating, Jennifer.
path to path.
Too.
And
Are you shy?
and Jennifer, you may not know that I'm a Edo-ko, so I'm really into pachinko, among other things. I spent 8 years in Japan, believe it or not, including 3 in high school and 5 running a company there. Okay, so we're on to 4 other decks quickly. The one on the left, upper left, is the Spirit Song deck. And here strength is represented by the elephant, which is quite loving, as you've probably seen if you've seen a female elephant with her baby. They're quite loving, but they also don't take any guff.
Right.
And you don't want
at all.
You don't want to be a lion that gets on the wrong side of an elephant. Okay, on the right here is the Jungian Tarot, which is done. The painting was done by Robert Wang, and I thought I had here.
He also has the Tarot of the Reversal. I think that.
Well, Robert Wang has written at least 4 books, and so let me just read quickly what he says about this card, because it has a lot of symbolism in it. And a lot of it is related to the Greek mysteries and to Jungian psychology. So I'm just going to read the part of it. I'm on page 122 of the Jungian Tarot and its alchemical imagery. That's the book. And what he says, strength is the woman of the apocalypse, described by St. John as robed with the sun, beneath her feet the moon, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. The text continues, saying that she was pregnant and that she gave birth to a male child who is destined to rule all nations. This is strength as the archetype of the Virgin Mother, the aspect which is shown in most tarot decks. She is a figure of inherent contradictions. On the one hand, she is virtue conquering primitive force, but on the other, she is the archetype of helpless maiden, exposed to great dangers, such as being devoured by reptiles or being subject to bloody, cruel, and obscene orgies, or being forced to descend into Hades. It is the terrible mother who brings the daughter to such trials. Despite a powerful sexual content here, the maiden aspect of strength, as opposed to its horror aspect, is ever virgin. She is like the ancient Vestal virgins who protected the sacred fire. Only in her phase of virtue and innocence can she bring under control what is represented by the red lion. The richness of her activity is explained by the myth of Demeter and Kore, which illustrates the Jungian principle that every mother contains her daughter in herself, and every daughter her mother, and that every woman extends backwards into her mother and forwards into her daughter. The conscious experience of these ties produces the feeling that her life is spread out over generations. The first step toward the immediate experience and conviction of being outside of time, which brings with it a feeling of immortality. The corn goddess, Demeter, was a gentle and loving temperament, had a gentle and loving temperament who bore Kore and Iacchus out of wedlock to her brother Zeus. Her natural gaiety was destroyed when Hades fell in love with the young Kore and asked Zeus for her hand in marriage. Zeus did not want to offend his oldest brother, but knew how Demeter would feel if he agreed. So he permitted Hades to rape and to abduct the girl while she was picking flowers in the field. It was unclear where Kore was abducted, but Demeter's priests told her that it was at Eleusis. Upon learning the truth of her daughter's kidnapping, Demeter angrily refused to return to Olympus, a stand which embarrassed Zeus and caused him to send Hermes to Hades with the message that Kore must be restored. A compromise was eventually reached, and it was determined that Kore should spend 3 months of each year with Hades as the Queen of Tartarus, where she would be known as Persephone. The remaining 9 months she was to spend with her mother, Demeter. Hecate was to keep watch over Kore and to ensure that this arrangement was maintained. The disappearance and return of Kore was occasion for great festivals in Greece. The Thesmophoria, celebrated in Attica in the month of October, marked the departure of Kore for the underworld. The return of Kore was celebrated in the Lesser Illusion Mysteries in February. The emphasis was agricultural, meaning the old and the new crops. As one scholar stated, and despite 18th and 19th century Romantic notions about the famous Greek mysteries, at Eleusis, there were no doctrines, but only some simple fundamental ideas about life and death, as symbolized in the springing up of the new crops from the old. The Greater Eleusinian Mysteries took place every 5 years and were in honor of Demeter. As Graves described these rituals, Demeter's ecstatic initiates symbolically consummated their love affair with Iasius, or Tripolemus, or Zeus, in an inner recess of the shrine. So the mother, who is also daughter, is understood to have a profoundly sexual nature. She brings forth the daughter who lives both in the above and in the below, in the spring sunlight and the underworld. This daughter is both innocent maiden and profligate whore. The whore is the dark side of the female aspect of Mercurius. She is the dark side of original woman in her role as Eve. The whore relates to Lilith, who, according to the Talmud, was the first wife of Adam, who became the mother of the demons. She is also the serpent, who is at once the cause of the fall and the means of redemption. In some stories, Lilith is described as taking the form of a beautiful woman to beguile and destroy young children. In that role, she is a deceiver whose activities parallel those of Mercurius as trickster. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to is that the other day, and I'll set this aside for a moment, the other day when Colleen was talking to us, she got very much into the story of Lilith because her point was that Lilith was demanding equality, and so she got banished from the garden, and then Eve was made as subservient to Adam, and so Colleen's point, and she's done many beautiful, very interesting ceramic pieces about this, is that it was Lilith that gave the apple to Eve, and that our present day Liliths are people like AOC and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and a few others that could come to mind, I'm sure, if we thought about it. Those are the two.
You know, in that conversation too, and I think I commented during that it's like the poet Paul Valéry, the French surrealist poet Paul Valéry, has a 16-page poem, Ébauche d'un serpent, which is sketch of a serpent translated from the French to the English. And Dr. Lynn Hoggard, who actually is my stepmother, as it were, translated that to the English. And the 16-page poem, basically, instead of being the fall of Adam and Eve, and instead of being shame and guilt, and actually instead of being the fall, it's Eve consummating with the apple to birth consciousness. Except when you zoom in the history, Lilith had already birthed consciousness prior, when she basically fired Adam, said, I want out of here, God. I want to get the heck away. And then replaced with the rib of Eve. So
we're all gonna have to go back and look at our Lilith story, I think.
Yeah, because when Pauline brought up the Lilith story, I went, oh, right, Lilith. Yeah. It was Book of Solomon. I never remembered that
Samantha,
she snuck back in.
What were you saying?
The comment that I'm making is that I have less of a study and knowledge of Lilith. So I appreciate hearing it and the different versions, but my first exposure to even that name was Frasier, and then also there was a women's a festival of music that started when I was a teenager called Lilith Fair, and then it wasn't until I was an adult. You remember that? So
yeah.
it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized, oh, there's a reference to that, and also the idea of the fruit was about knowledge. What's wrong with wanting to have knowledge? She was cool. She was passing what she knew to Eve, is my projection onto what I heard.
Well, yes, I think that's right.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's a projection. I think it's right on the money, because honestly, Eve decided, that's conscious. She was no longer virginal. She decided to bite the apple. So that decision then bites the knowledge. There's the birth of consciousness, except that's Lilith created consciousness by basically walking up to God and going, I'm done. This guy, essentially. Yeah, so Lilith basically circled back around so that Eve could then become conscious. I mean,
so one of the things that's happening here and is going to continue to happen is that the feminine is now reemerging very strongly. And last week I participated in a Zoom call, which was all women except me, but it was a woman who talked about Sophia and the significance of Sophia, which is God's feminine side, okay, as it's come up through the church, and particularly in the Eastern Church and the Orthodox churches. And so I've invited her to speak to us. I hope that she will do it on the 10th of October, but
oh, nice.
I haven't gotten back to check my email yet, but watch for that space. And
I hope she does, Skip, because frankly, especially with religions, patriarchy is basically subjugated women. For example, the Holy Ghost, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in Christianity. Well, what's the Holy Ghost? It's not an apparition. It's not Casper. That's Sophia. That's the female divine feminine. And it's, as Holy Ghost, you'd never know it was a woman. But so there's a subjugation.
I think that's a little bit over the top because.
Well, but I'd like to hear her perspective, because it feels like there's a lot of male in a lot of the religions, like you said, and now the female is finally being opened as to where it's alluded to, because it's all over the place through all the different texts.
Okay. All right. So one thing I'm doing before we run out of time, and I'm going to keep going for a bit longer, but I'm giving you the link. That's the link to register for our other sessions besides the Tarot and anything else you might have registered for. The Wisdom Path colloquia is the one that you want if you want to come and hear the sessions like the one with Colleen and the one with Alyssa Markham that is coming up. And so if you want to be notified about that, that's the link that you put your email address in so that you know. Now, there's a couple more that I want to highlight here. And one of them is the new Mythic Tarot by Liz Green. And the reason I wanted to is that here is strength in Liz Green's tarot. And it's the new Mythic Tarot by Juliet Sharman Burke and Liz Green, with cards illustrated by Giovanni Caselli. And there was an earlier version of this tarot, the Mythic Tarot, but this is the new Mythic Tarot. And I wanted to emphasize it because it shows this as a masculine figure fighting. And so I just want to read a little bit about what Liz Green has put here. Under strength, the card of strength portrays a muscular, powerfully built man with curling chestnut hair, wearing only a red loincloth. He is engaged in a savage struggle with a lion and has managed to wrap his strong hands around the beast's throat. At the critical moment, he is winning the fight. Around man and lion loomed the rocky walls of a dark cave. Through the mouth of the cave can be seen a barren landscape of brown hills. Then there's a couple of captions. The lion can only be conquered with bare hands. There are no man-made tools or shortcuts, but only one's own resources. Okay, so that's an important point about strength. Heracles wears the blood red color of Ares, whom we met in the card of the Chariot, because he has already learned the lesson of harnessing his aggression and directing it toward a creative end. And also, the gloominess of the cave is like the darkness of the unconscious, in which primitive instincts dwell, invisible to ordinary awareness. I think I'll leave it at that. But the new Mythic Tarot, in which Liz Green, who is a Jungian analyst, made obviously a major contribution, is a very powerful book that comes with that tarot deck, and I urge you to read it because you will be reading Jungian psychology if you do that. And,
You know, Skip, I'd like to add, because that with Liz Green's piece there, I mean, if you invoke the Platonic or Plato's cave, she really, this card, the way she set this is the life within the cave, or the inner world. And she really does so much, I hate to put it this way with a bad tarot pun, but justice, 811, to the strength card, with the way that she graphically in this card shows this process occurring within the cave.
right, and let me read at the divinatory level here. On a divinatory level, the card of strength, when it appears in a spread, implies a situation where a collision with the lion within is inevitable, and where a creative handling of one's own rage and senseless pride is desirable. Nice comment, Liz, about the masculine. Courage, strength, and self-discipline are necessary to battle with the situation. Through such an experience, we can come in contact with the beast, but also with that part of us which is Heracles, the hero who can subdue it. Thus, the fool, having developed the faculties of mind and feeling, now learns to deal with his own ferocious egotism, emerging from this contest with trust in himself and integrity toward others. So obviously it's masculine and feminine issue. And go ahead.
Can I? There's two things I wanted to say. One is that my initial reaction to hearing it, and it wasn't personal to what I was hearing, like I wasn't finding it problematic so much, but I was looking up my own, I guess, feminine sensitivities of just like, poor lion, like I'm looking at this guy, like, hurt, you know, but so I liked when you shared the definition that it's about being hands-on. And plus, I've been this guy before, you know what I mean? I have masculine and feminine within me, but I was thinking about the difference between the way the female representation of strength, which is channeling, or in a sense, cooperating with this force, that the strength is more about the strength of being containment, being able to contain it, whereas this is more about overcoming or destroying.
Yeah,
but I
and
guess both are necessary.
the reality is, as I said earlier, we always have this balance, don't we?
Right.
From the time we're an infant till the time of our death, we're always somehow balancing these forces. I mean, we can screw up and end up in front of a firing squad someday, but but if we balance and live a proper life, then we're going to do that throughout life. It may not be an ideal balance, but that's where the other archetypes come in. And
well, and Skip, I'll add that in my readings, and when the strength card comes up, and especially if it comes up in a very prominent position, I assign the homework to watch for and write down the verbs you use, because just looking at the verb of the masculine and the verb of the feminine, I mean, Samantha said channeling, there's a verb. Samantha said overpowering, conquering, there are verbs. And just by, in a sense, diving into what's the action item, I look at it as a business plan in one little word of just add water. Watch the verbs you are using when the strength card comes up. And that'll tell you about your inner contents and how they're moving.
Okay, well, there's a comment here that I really want to address on YouTube. Raquel says, what I love about Liz Green's Mythic Tarot is that Heracles kills the lion to wear his skin to become invincible. So we can say that the animal instinct can be used rationally by the person. I'm going to come back to that. Let me read down a few more. Brendan Miller says, this just changes the interval length, not the beliefs, i.e. this is still reincarnation. Whether the death occurs every second or at the end of the organism, the actual life, or every 3 lives, it still follows the same premise of reincarnation. And Brendan says, this is semantics, not ontological premises. Gentlemen, I'm not interested in semantics or ontological anything in this series.
You know, and Skip, and I'll agree, because to me, semantics.
Most people who are following me don't even know what those words mean, and I've looked them up so many times.
Well, you know, semantics.
I still don't know what they mean. But
semantics is just some antics with wordplay.
Okay.
So let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. So go ahead.
Thank you. There was something else. First of all, I'm glad that you mentioned trying to take an approach, trying to circumvent the academic part of things, which of course is a bit difficult because we're having these, you know, very like rarefied conversations and everything. But I really appreciate that. And I didn't know at what point to share this in class, so it might seem kind of like a non sequitur, but I've had a kind of struggle lately in terms of my approach to tarot, where I started a business also recently. Was reading for about 20 years for myself and started reading for other people. And then anyway, it kind of just happened. So that's a stream of income, but slow and steady. But I was getting to the point where I was like, you know, I got the Golden Dawn and I was just thought like, oh, I'm having these psychic experiences. It seemed very real to me. And then I learned about Enrique Enriquez, which if you're not familiar with him, I'd love to send you some links or something, which is a total opposite interpretation, which is that nothing is mystical, and more toward the end of what you were saying about the interpretation, the fixed meanings are less important than what you project, you know?
Right.
But anyway, but what I'm trying to like put the ocean through a straw with what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is that I appreciate what you said tonight about referring to that other aspect of not needing a preset meanings, because I'm still trying to find where I am within all of this.
Okay, well, here's a point. Okay, when you're young, and you're still quite young, and for most of the people that follow this channel, the beginning of life is chaos. Okay, you're born into a room with bright lights and lots of noise, and unless you're very lucky and your mom has arranged a Lamaze birth, chances are things are pretty chaotic when you're born, and it doesn't get better, and it's not getting better. We're in a time when we've gone from, in the 16th century, the average person getting the equivalent of the Sunday New York Times in a lifetime. That's how much information they got in a whole lifetime. And now, since 1995, we've turned on all the mystical religion, and not only that, all the information of the world, with the exception of government and company secrets, for everyone. Okay, and again, so that's totally chaotic. And I fortunately was born before that time, and so I can see how that must feel chaotic to Generation Z and the millennial generation and so on. And what I'm trying to offer is a way to see the world, okay? And so this is my metaphor for that. My little red ball here, which I squeeze sometimes, it represents the earth, and it represents the chaos that we're in right now. And you know, that's our leaky lifeboat. We all have to figure out how we're going to survive on that leaky lifeboat. And we have about 20 miles of breathable air over our heads, and that's it. And so we have to say, okay, let's put this this chaos aside and figure out where we are. Let's understand where we are. And what I found is, and we had a session with Melissa Townsend earlier about the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which was very valuable. And she has done paintings of every verse of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And the very first image that she has in the Yoga Sutras is an image of spilled milk, and that's chaos. Okay, and so anybody that has been around kids or around a clumsy husband who's spilled milk knows that when that happens, you have chaos in your life. Okay, and so what we all have to learn to do is to objectify this chaotic world, okay, and step back from it and look at it and say, okay, you know, what do I know that I really need? Okay, now one thing you really need is you need to know about this divine realm, which is the archetypal realm, which we can't see, but we can't deny. And so we're talking about it in the context of strength tonight, but and we'll talk about it in 22 other contexts, or have already done 7 others. And so, and we're talking about them for 2 hours, more than 2 hours each. We're going on 3 hours now here. But the point is that we have to understand what those forces are. Remember what the Marseille Tarot said on strength. It said la force. Okay, so the force is with you, and the force is with all of us. And we first have to understand that that's an invisible force that guides our lives. And it guides our lives from the time we're wailing for milk from our mother to the time that we are sipping our last sip of water in our deathbed. And so understanding that force, whether we're men or women, is really important. And that's the point that I've been trying to get to. Now, I do want to go back to
Skip really quickly, if I may. Samantha made a comment. It's like trying to pull an ocean through a straw, or
right,
try to
that's
put
a great
an ocean
comment.
through a straw. And
You
what
said it first. I wish I came up with it. That's a musician.
well, you know,
for me.
as far as I'm
But it is how it
concerned, you authored it tonight because T.S. Eliot said, "Good poets borrow and great poets steal." So you know, you just stole that outright,
Oh.
cracked that safe, and it's yours. But what I'd like to say though is, depending on what place around the world I'm in, I swim. I love swimming. But the thing is, depending on what place in the world I'm in, sometimes I'm like, no, high incidence of great white shark, not swimming. So I got to say, what I like here, Skip, is that you dial into, let's swim. Let's not worry about all the other stuff. So there's a focus here that I find valuable.
Okay, so I want to go back to Raquel, and so yes, thank you, Samantha, for your ocean through a straw. We are trying to draw an ocean through a straw. That's what my
beautiful.
metaphor. We're trying
Your red ball.
trying to eat this chaotic earth. It's my red ball here.
Well, yeah, when you held out a red ball, I thought ocean and through the straw. It's such a great correspondence.
Right now, so Raquel has made a couple of comments here that I do want to address. Raquel said, what I love about Liz Green's Mythic Tarot is that Hercules kills the lion to wear his skin to become invincible. So we can say that the animal instinct can be used rationally by the person. Now, I want to be very careful about that idea, because what I want to emphasize here, which is a fundamental dictum of mine, is that rationality relates to the logos, and there's nothing in the logos that is alive. Okay,
right?
And let me explain what I mean by that, because the logos gets all the juice. If you listen to Jordan Peterson or anybody else, they all say, oh, we got to have logos, right? Well, first of all, everybody, whether you're on the playback, on YouTube, or on the Zoom, look around your room. Everything that's in your room is logos, and it's all dead. Okay, it was created, it was engineered, it was developed. There's nothing in there that's alive. There's nothing in your room alive except for you, and parts of you are not alive too. Okay, in the sense that you have a skeleton that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, type thing. You know, everything else will change, but life itself comes from the eros. Okay, and what we're talking about here is the transition from pure matter, which is everything else we know in space, and everything that the earth was before the origin of life was pure matter. And but nonetheless, these archetypes were already existing, in the sense that they were already in the universe. And so from the time life emerged on the earth, they were incorporating these spiritual ideas, these archetypal ideas, into our lives, right from single-celled organisms. And so from the time sex was invented by our single-celled organism ancestors to today, has been a continuation of the implementation of those archetypes. Okay. And so I don't want to get too far. And this is just a caveat for Raquel. I don't want to get too far into the idea that we ought to kill off the instinct so that we can have rationality, because there's nothing in rationality that's alive. It can provide us with a structure in which we can live. The Tarot provides us with a structure in which we can talk about these things, but it's not alive. Okay, it lives in the sense that people create tarot decks, and every one of them is different, and they bring their life to that tarot deck, as Jordan has done. But in the end, his tarot deck is here on my shelf, and it's not alive. There's nothing living.
Right.
Okay. And it's only alive when I talk about it or Jordan talks about it in the course of one of these sessions.
And Skip, if I may, I think it was Louis Kahn, the architect, who said, matter is spent light. And maybe that's why we keep the things that are sacred to us around. There's a connection to ancestor, old one, etc., and past. But also, to speak to your logos, the reasons are unreasonable.
Right. And a lot of people have been wondering, I'm sure, about why I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, which I've posted all but the last 50 verses of 700, and they're coming soon. But the reason is that in the Bhagavad Gita, they're talking about sattvic, which is spiritual,
right?
Rajasic, which is the interstice between sattvic and tamas, and tamasic is matter, basically,
right?
Regressiveness, and so the question is, will we progress to the spiritual realm, or are we going to fall back into something, ultimately, if we don't save our little lifeboat here, ultimately, we're just going to have matter floating around in space.
If we don't hold on to your red ball, all we are doing is prima materia and Jungian. But where the thing is, it feels like there's that fork in the road of, is capital S self sonic numinosity, the totality of everything? Or does it fracture again and go to too much consciousness, too much instinct, base desires versus refined intellectual things? And if you only have...
Jordan, you're getting over the top on abstraction right now, okay?
So basically the split, you're talking about the split.
What I would say to your comment is it's always going to be over the top, and it's always going to correct itself. It's self-correcting.
Right.
Okay. And so what we're trying to do here is help people understand that it is self-correcting. Okay. Everybody's worried about, what the hell will happen after November 3rd, regardless of which side you're on in the in the election debate. Everybody's worried about what the heck will happen. Well, guess what? We have a thesis and an antithesis right now. And afterward, we're going to have a synthesis. This is fundamental alchemy.
Right.
It goes back to the 3rd century. And so there will be a synthesis. We will be the United States of America. Maybe we'll be more progressive, and maybe we'll be more regressive. Okay. And the question, maybe 20 years from now, somebody will tell us, maybe one of our grandchildren will write the history that will tell us what we were.
Right.
In these abstract terms like you're talking about, Jordan.
Well,
all right, but please now, let's stop, because I don't want to get off on this esoteric, this tangent. I want to get through this evening, because we're now over 3 hours. And so I just want to talk about Ciolo Thompson's card. And And then there's a couple more that I'll show you because I know they're loved. But okay, so Sheila Thompson's card, which is the Line Strider deck, is the lower right in this image. And Cielo says it in a more feminine way, I think. The key words that she gives us are courage, love, patience, balance, motivation, inner strength, and success. And she says, strength represents inner fortitude and the power of the human spirit to overcome any obstacle. The querent, that's the person that's being asked, who's asking the question in a divination, the querent should know they can endure life's obstacles through confidence, stamina, and persistence, tempered by patience, compassion, and inner calm. The lion is a symbol of our animal passions and desires. Strength, represented by a woman, controls the lion with quiet determination. The lemniscate appears over her head. I don't know what that is. Lemniscate appears.
Lemniscate.
What is it?
Lemniscate.
What does it mean?
It's I don't know the roots of it, but it's the infinity symbol.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Well, all right. Appears over her head. The same symbol seen in The Magician. Okay, that's what it must be. I never heard of that expression. Her white robe is that of the innocent fool, indicating a purity of spirit. The appearance of the strength card indicates a time when you must examine your instinctual urges and reactions, especially if you are assessing a situation or need to make a decision. This is a time to draw on your maturity of spirit, love, and compassion. Listen to your animal passions, but don't be governed by them. Okay, I'm not going to read everything that Cielo wrote, but hers is a kinder, gentler interpretation of the card, certainly. And so, in order to wrap up here, I do have a few other cards that I want to share. I'm not going to go into the discussions of them because it would take too long, but I will tell you which deck they're in. Okay, so the two cards on the top here are the two cards, two strength cards in the two decks that Melissa Townsend has done. And the one on the left is her El-Ted's deck, which is the deck she used when she was doing readings in a cafe in Soho in New York. And the one on the right is the deck that she uses in her own divinations. And I can tell you that Melissa Townsend is a psychic, and I paid a fair lot of money to have her do a reading for me, and it was quite psychic, and I appreciate her reading, and it was worth the money. The one on the left here is the Sasaboraito deck, and I guess that's all I really have to say about it at this moment. Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
It's a Soraibo deck too, though. You see his look askance out of his eyes, looking back.
Yeah,
but petting his big cat. I mean, there's a connection.
Right. So it's good. Let me read to you what is said here. And the Cecil Bride deck is by Stacia Burrington, and it's growing on me, I have to tell you. There were certain aspects of it I didn't care for, but one of the things I do care about is that she has a lot of Japanese themes in it, which is attractive to me. And so she calls the strength card the Lion Tamer. And here she has only 2 paragraphs. The strength card signifies firm but gentle dominance. This isn't strength in the literal muscular sense, but strength of mind and character, and the hidden power of vulnerability and compassion. This card often illustrates a woman demonstrating control over a lion with kindness, composure, slow gentleness, and softness. The Strength card represents patience, self-control, stability, and discipline. It may suggest a challenging situation that will require a soft but strong approach in resolution. So that's quite different from Liz Green's perspective of Heracles wrestling with the lion. And so she says reversed. A reverse Strength card suggests a lack of passion, fear, timidity, a weak will, and impatience leave the lion untamed. And then there's a quote, your calm mind is the ultimate weapon, so relax. And that's a quote from Bryant McGill. So I thought that was, she did it in a few words, but I thought she did a nice job of.
You know, Skip, she was really concise. And actually, I feel like she's a counterpoint to Liz Green, in agreement with Liz Green. And it's just how the concept is approached. Again, the verb.
Yeah, Shen, go ahead, and your turn to talk.
Oh, yeah, I just had a question, I guess. In going over these, I've seen sort of two ways to interpret the Strength card. As one interpretation, I could see the human taming the lion, but then I could also see the lion encouraging the human, and maybe there's a little bit of both in it.
Surely, definitely.
That's a beautiful crossover, because
saying that.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because it takes the control out of it and puts the natural in it of the mixing, the alchemical, magical mixing.
Okay, so let me go on with the one on the lower right here, which is from the Mystic Mondays Tarot.
Skip, do you mind if I actually...
Go ahead.
You said something in the reading of the last Strength definition that I was wondering if you could reread. It was just like a short phrase. And it was saying that how strength is weakened. And I think you said timidity. That was one thing. It was like an opposite meaning than I expected. It was something about how we water down our strength.
Okay. And I was reading about the lower left card, was
Yeah.
Okay, let me just read the paragraph again. The Strength card signifies firm but gentle dominance. This isn't strength in the literal muscular sense, but strength of mind and character, and the hidden power of vulnerability and compassion. This card often illustrates a woman demonstrating control over a lion with kindness, composure, slow gentleness, and softness. The Strength card represents patience, self-control, stability, and discipline. It may suggest a challenging situation that will require a soft but strong approach to resolution. And the reverse is a reverse Strength card suggests a lack of passion, fear, timidity, a weak will, and impatience leave the lion untamed. And the quote, your calm mind is the ultimate weapon, so relax. And as I was reading this just now, what the sort of past master of this that I really appreciate is the Dalai Lama, because he, well, first of all, let me just mention that Lama, teacher, but Ma refers to Mama also. So Lamas are sort of feminine in spirit, but not feminine in action. Teachers, okay, in other words, the Ma is there, and so it seems that, and the Dalai Lama is always talking about compassion, but what he's done by being forced out of Tibet and continuing to bring Tibetan Buddhism to the world is by demonstrating his strength. He has literally done it. So we have more than 300,000 Buddhists in the United States, including my wife.
And Skip, and I would say too, he's the mother of teaching, is the concept too.
Right. And so, as she says here, this isn't strength in the literal muscular sense, but strength of mind and character and the hidden power of vulnerability and compassion. So what the Dalai Lama did was he brought his people, as many as he could get out of Tibet, out and created a new place for them in the world. And what the Chinese did by forcing that was they spread Tibetan Buddhism everywhere. And by its compassion, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people all over the world. In fact, there are plenty of them in China too.
Well, it's interesting to me too, the intense pressure within a seed pod, and then they basically dandelioned him out. The explosion sent it everywhere.
Right. And they didn't do it violently, though. For the most part, they didn't. They did it entirely by compassion and this kind of strength that we're talking about here.
Right.
Okay. So did that cover it, Samantha?
Yes, thank you. That was helpful. What stood out to me, and the reason I asked you to repeat it, was the line was the reverse meaning, saying the ways that strength is untamed when we are giving into, you said, the two words that stuck out to me were fear and timidity, which is interesting. That term untamed, like we think of something being untamed as being strong, but it's actually in being able to contain it and channel it, that it's strong. So the idea that fear and the idea that timidity leaves something untamed was just like, it reversed some type of, it was an inflection of a different meaning for me. It was helpful. It like opened something up in my brain to think of it that way. So thank you.
Right. Okay, so
Skip, may I quickly add though, to that?
Move on.
The timidity part, there's fear, which is important, and that's radar. But when anxiety hijacks fear, then there's being afraid. So the fear is strong and the afraid is timid.
Okay, Shen, one more time, and then I'm going to ask everybody to mute yourselves so I can get through the rest of this in the next 15 minutes, because this is now a 3.5-hour session. So,
okay.
Shen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had something to say about regarding Samantha's comment about strength being watered down. That took me back to the quote earlier from when you were going over the card that had the chessboard motif on it. My inner animal connects me to my lust for life. And I'm seeing strength. That
was the she-wolf card. Where is that? Is it that one? There it is.
Yes, that one. When I was thinking about watering down strength, I was thinking about how I processed that quote about the inner animal sort of representing our connection to our body and our actions in the world, and how if you lose touch with that, you may find a lot in the life of the mind and the feelings, but you may not have much impetus to really put yourself out into the world. So that's what came to mind when Samantha mentioned the watering down of strength.
Right, but what I would also add here is that if you don't have strength, if you feel unempowered, then one of the things that you need to know is you need to go get some.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
And you can get it in very small ways. You can get it by going to the art store and getting a set of watercolors and start painting in the way that Colleen talks about. And eventually you'll start to get something. And so, you know, I was thinking of painting portraits, but I'm a miserable painter. But I found that I could paint portraits if I just let myself do it. And it made me much stronger as an individual. And I mean, I'll just very quickly share a portrait I did. This is a self-portrait that I did based on a photograph that was taken of me in 1970, but I did the painting in 2001.
You say you're miserable at paint, and that looks great.
Yeah, because Skip, that's when you said when you just allow yourself, when you flow. I mean, that's that right there. There's presence as architecture in that image.
Right, and so the point that I make about this is this image contains everything I have to say about the Vietnam War, and it contains it in the white of my left eye.
Yeah, I was going to say your left eye, because then I look at the right eye in the dark, and I see them both, and there's that look. That's a tarot card. I could go forever. I could ask that question. I could ask any question of that painting, and it would answer it. Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that.
All right. So now I'm going. Okay. So now I would like for everyone to mute for a few moments while I work through this last. Where is this? I'm trying to share.
And Skip, before I mute, thanks for your endurance tonight, because it's been beautiful, and it's the ever ready bunny session. It just keeps going.
Okay. Yeah, sort of. Okay, for some reason I can't bring this. Oh, wait a minute. It's because, there it is. Okay, now I've got it. All right, I'm sharing again, not that. I'm sharing again the one set of 4 that we were looking at, because I quickly want to give time to this Mystic Tarot. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to show you a couple more Tarot cards. Please, everybody, just keep on mute until I get through this, and then we'll have a wrap-up session. And Jordan, you will be second to the last. So let's give everybody else a chance to speak first in the wrap-up. Okay, so I'm here now. I'm talking about the card in the lower right, and this is by Grace Duong, and Grace, it's called the Mystic Monday Tarot, and she summarizes the strength by fierce endurance, courage. Strength is not only a card of physical strength, but often points to your inner strength. It shows your growth and maturity in that you have been able to deal with challenging situations with compassion and patience. It is natural for humans to have animalistic instincts, and you have learned to tame the beast to become guided by a higher consciousness. Master your impulses and take responsibility for yourself and your actions. With this power of self-control, you will be able to approach your problems powerfully and gracefully. Courage and patience are both needed in facing your fears. Connecting your inner and outer strength is key to embodying this impenetrable, ferocious energy with finesse and prowess. Know that you have all the tools necessary to not only persevere, but thrive. And the reverse of this card, she says, she summarizes apprehensive, doubtful, and anxious. And here's what she says. Recently, you have lost confidence after experiencing a setback. This bump in the road fills you with doubt as you take a timid step forward, questioning if you are on the right path. You are giving in to your animal instincts and acting out in reactionary ways. Take a deep breath and realize that this is a minor delay and that you have enough resilience to make it through. No need to be anxious. Your moment of weakness will pass in time. To expel this period of doubt, reflect upon positive things that are going well for you right now. Think about all the supportive people who have helped you along the way. There is always something to be grateful for, and that gratitude will help you get through this challenging time. Always remember that you are enough no matter what is happening in your life. And I just love the wisdom in that comment that she made. Now, this is the Deviant Moon Tarot, and do I have the Deviant Moon? I have the Deviant Moon book, and this is a forever favorite because everybody wants to look at the dark side and how we get to this. Now this is by Patrick Valenza, and Patrick has put strength as the number 11 card. We're not going to get into that anymore, but here's strength from Patrick. With mental strength derived from confidence, a mighty wrestler exerts physical force over an untamed beast. Disregarding the danger, he pries the creature's jaws wide open, placing his head precariously close to its razor-sharp teeth. He has accomplished this feat many times before, and experience has made him sure of the things he can achieve through practice and a determined mind. Throughout the struggle, the wrestler must maintain his focus and concentration. Likewise, he must not become overconfident or arrogant, for the beast he dares to overpower will not succumb to so willingly. It too fights for domination and has curled its tail around the man's ankle in an attempt to throw him off balance. If he begins to doubt himself, the wrestler could be devoured in an instant. Certainly in his own abilities will allow him to triumph over this daunting situation. Upright meanings. When strength appears in your reading, it advises you to combine your mental and physical energies into one indomitable force. Once this happens, you will have the power to endure any ordeal. Like a muscle, you will expand by courageously dealing with the demands life places on you. Always show bravery in the face of fear. Refuse to let adversity get the best of you. In addition, the card may be challenging you to take control of your inner demons. By gaining the upper hand, you will be better able to cope with the troubles of the outside world. Reverse meanings. When strength appears upside down, it tells of vulnerability and weakness. Your mind has become fragile and your body has followed suit. Low energy leaves you incapable of concentration. Small tasks seem like an unbearable struggle. Fear cripples your confidence, while insecurity wraps itself around your ambitions. While you are in this diminished state, your negative thoughts may overwhelm you. And I'm not going to read the rest of Patrick's statement here because I want to urge you all to possess and own a copy of his book, The Deviant Tarot. And what this reminds me of, by the way, is Colleen's images of Lilith with her tail wrapping around. And let's see if I have any more here. Oh yeah, wait a minute. Okay, there was one other one that was a latecomer to the party, and I wanted to show it to you because this is the deck that that I use for divinations right now as I'm reading about doing my readings for the president. And in this case, it's very interesting. Unfortunately, this particular card didn't come out completely, or I cropped it too much, because it, over here in this corner, it has a volcano. Oh, here it is. There's the volcano right there, right over her right shoulder. And it reminded me of a piece of advice that my father gave me as I was getting on a ship in Yokohama Harbor to come back from Japan to go to college. And I was coming back alone. I was 17 years old, and I was coming on a troop ship back from Yokohama to San Francisco, a 10-day voyage. And my father whispers in my ear, the last thing he said to me was, "Skip, beware of thin-lipped women, for there lies a sleeping volcano." and I just saw this volcano and I said, oh my God, I have to tell that story. And so it's interesting that this woman is obviously very strong. She's wearing a crown with a cobra on the top of her head. And she's turned the lion power into just a cover for her nakedness. And so she's obviously quite strong. All right, that will be enough of that. And so we still have 4 of you here. And let's see if from Samantha to me, I just, okay. So Samantha said that she really enjoyed the class, and then okay, so I don't know if Jennifer wants to put a note, and I'm not sure Annette has been able to get through. Shen, did you have any final thought here?
No, not really. Thank you for the class.
Okay, I do have here, and I'm not going to read it, but I'll show it for 10 seconds so that people can see it and read the engagement. This is from the Tarot of the Divine, and this is the story that goes with strength in the Tarot of the Divine. So I'll just leave it there for a moment. And so if you're watching this on replay, you can go back and stop the video and see what this has to say. But there are a lot of good stories in the Tarot of the Divine. And so that's that. So Jordan, last lap here.
So strength, I think I should just read the first paragraph from my book. It's a short one. And then just stop and leave it at that and hang that into the space and see how it resonates.
Okay, it's one paragraph.
It's one paragraph. It's
right.
Let me see,
one paragraph. 2, go for it.
Maybe 12 lines, very short. Strength indicates that you master self-control as you tame your fears and harness your impulses. The power of your voice is important in strength. Feel infinite fortitude while you incorporate your voice. This is important. Visualize how a sprinter sits, how a lion lounges or naps. Strength itself is not indicated to tame your beast. Strength here is to harness your voice. A simple way is indicated. Simple gestures establish direction. Your strength is natural. Anything more than necessary may cause decay or damage. Just enough is all you need here. And that's the one paragraph.
Great. Okay, that's a good thing to end on. So I am going to take a week off next week because today is the 28th of September.
And happy birthday.
Which means that next Monday is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
And, because I often say that, you know, you have to pay attention to your family first. And so I'm going to focus on whatever my wife has cooked up.
Excellent. Excellent.
Wow. Something good.
Yeah.
Happy birthday for next Monday. That's excellent. When I saw that email and it's like no class. Oh, because of my birthday, I had to say I had the biggest surprise. I smile. I was like, good for you, Skip. That's a perfect reason.
Right. Okay. So then 2 weeks from tonight, we will be doing The Hermit. And that's Gandalf or any Merlin or skip.conover at 11:30 at night on a 3.5-hour session.
Nice. And I'll tell you, Skip, I have no number mix up, pachinko ball, mumbo jumbo about number 9. It's just all The Hermit. So,
okay. All right. So we'll see you next week or 2 weeks from tonight. And in the meantime, if you're on the advanced reading group, we're on at 1:00 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. And if you have signed up for the Wisdom Path colloquia, we have a colloquium on the 3rd of October, and it is called The Book of Composition, and it's about the writing of and the events of a dear friend of my wife and mine, whose name is Ku'ule. And Ku'ule was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 10 years ago. And we were in Honolulu shortly after that diagnosis. And my friend, Dr. Joss Sangalang, worked with her. And then Ku'ule had a religious experience which allowed her to not only help herself, but help 12 other women find their spiritual path. And so Ku'ule is going to be the featured speaker on Friday or Saturday, this coming Saturday. I don't have the time, but if you have signed up for the Wisdom Path colloquia at the link that I provided, then you will get my notice on it. I'm going to put the link on one more time on the
what
YouTube
a great story.
channel.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah. And so Ku'ule has written the 12 stories of the women. And so that's what the Book of Composition is about, and it's being launched this week. I'll put the link in here too, just in case any of you don't have it. So that will be a great one. And then I won't be here on Monday, but I am doing my Sunday morning session, which has become very popular. And then 2 weeks from tonight, we'll go on with The Hermit. So thank you all for being.
Thanks for doing that. The 8 a.m. Sunday. I'll be there next week. This week I realized, I didn't even know, but I appreciate you facilitating the other side of the world's time zone conveniences. That's a great gesture.
Yeah, and that's expressly because in China, they are able to watch Zoom live, but they cannot watch YouTube. They're not permitted to watch YouTube. And so I intentionally am doing that session at 8 a.m. so it reaches that country at
that makes so much
8
sense.
PM.
I mean, yeah, Australia's they're 16 hours in the future, and then
in Australia it's it's 10 p.m., which is a
Right.
little tough for my
Right.
Australian followers. But anyway, so that's where we are. Thank you everyone for following, and we've had a good following on YouTube as well, and a good discussion on YouTube. And so thank you, Raquel, for being here. Raquel said she had to leave. It was after midnight in Brazil where she was checking in from.
Okay.
So anyway, peace. Take care now.